Well, it's 6 o'clock. It's time to begin. Welcome to Madison's Board of Zoning Appeals meeting, August 14, 2023. Can we have a roll call?
Mark Acosta, Nancy Burkhart,
Here.
Rick Ferris,
Here.
Scott Bolton.
Here. And board members, have you had a chance to look over last month's minutes?
Yes.
Any additions or corrections?
No,
I have none.
I have none.
I have one on page 8. Down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, about 10 lines from the bottom. With this being one-handed feet of a residential property, that was 100 feet, which is, it wasn't a one-handed feet. So that's I move we approve the minutes with that correction.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Minutes are approved. We move on to our renewals of conditional uses. There are a total of 8, and all but one have paid and had no complaints. The ones that paid: Angela Tharp, Margaret Seifert Rushel, Sarah Libby Mann, Howie and Lisa Cutchell, Paul and Judy Kemp, Garrett Lehigh. And those, there were 7. Those have all paid. Therefore, I move that we approve their conditional use permits.
What about number 8?
Number 8, this is another one. This was number 8 for the record. Tiny Kids Can. They are changing their plans and they are allowing that one to die and not be renewed.
Okay.
So of 6 of these 7, I've moved that we approve their renewal of their conditional use permits. We have a second?
Second.
Favor say aye.
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 Opposed, no. They're renewed. There is one, number 3 on the list. Richard and Rhonda Stinger. It was a conditional use for one recreational vehicle, 1410 East Fulton Street. No complaints, however, they have not paid. Therefore, I instruct our attorney to send them the usual letter indicating that they are not paid, but if they do pay by our next regular meeting, their conditional use permit will be renewed. Yes, if you wish to. Well, come up here to the podium, please, and give your name and address for the record.
My name is Steve Gardner. I live at 1431 East Fulton. I came here for another reason, but that just came up. So I purchased that property from Rick and Rhonda about a year ago. And I got the letter in their name for the conditional use, and I just haven't done anything with it yet. Do I have to resubmit application or?
Yes, the conditional use goes with the owner, so you'll have to reapply if you wish to keep doing that.
I do. Okay.
So just see this guy right over here, Joe Patterson,
Okay.
and he will help you with everything you need.
All right. Thank you.
So in that case, since it's been sold, that conditional use is expired. So we take no action on it. Moving on, we have one tabled application from last month. Mary Ann Bennett was a conditional use permit to allow camping for select events, family and friends, 1011 Fillmore Street, zoned open space. And Ms. Bennett, if you would give your name and address for the record
My
again,
name's
please.
Mary Ann Bennett, 4004 West State Road, 56 Hanover. But we're talking about 1011 Fillmore Street.
And could you explain to the board what it is you are wishing to do again?
I just want the same permits that everyone else has gotten. I have done all my applications. I sent in the list of the dates that I wanted. I was told to get some representatives and to have a realtor to come back to this meeting. Jessica's not able to come, but I think she sent you all a letter stating what she felt about not doing anything to the property, the value of the property. And I do have some people, so I don't know what else you want me to tell.
Well, if you have folk here that want to speak on your behalf, we'll certainly have time for that in just a minute.
Okay?
Board members, do you have any questions?
I have a question. So you had the dates, the 11 dates, the weekends, but before you also wanted any time for family and friends. Is that still on the table?
You know, all I want is what I can get is
The dates?
correct.
Okay.
That's all I want.
Okay.
Any other questions, board members? I do want to take a minute. We have several letters here. We have a letter from somebody calling themselves KD in support. We have two letters from a VS Young in support. And we just got a letter tonight from, here's another letter which I can't quite see who wrote it. And we have the letter from, who was it?
Butler?
Mrs. Butler, yeah, Mrs. Butler. So, board members, you've all seen those. And I move that we enter these letters into the public record for this meeting.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The letters are accepted into the record. It's just something we have to do. So you're asking now for those essentially 11 dates. There have been a couple other, this issue has arisen a few other times, once for 926 East Vaughn, once for 502, 504, and 510 East Vaughn. And let's see, 926 had 5 principal dates. 502, 504, and 510, I believe, had 11, a total of 11. And you're asking for the 11 dates.
Yes.
And of course, you've also submitted that you would go along with all the other various restrictions that we had.
Correct?
And in the past, there was extensive discussion about that because, well, as you know, Vaughn Drive is a treasure. And it's that way because people, you just walk down the sidewalk and you see the people that gave the money to finance it quite a number of years ago now. And that's why certainly in my view as a board member, I've stated before in the minutes that it's like a miniature Lakeshore Drive in Chicago. Something that, if you've been to Chicago, you know that that is a treasure. And here I believe that Vaughn Drive is a treasure. And of
I
course-
also agree with that. That's why we purchased the property.
I understand. Let's see here. Trying to find in my pile of paper. Here we go. So, here's your application. So you want this for, well, essentially all the major festivals the town has, plus RDC, UTV, golf cart, poker run. Board members, I assume you've had time to study all this. Do you have anything to add, subtract, any comments?
Now, you did have some camping. Was it a regatta is when you had camping?
I did. I had 2 campers there.
Okay, just 2. And did that go okay? You had any problems or
I did not.
issues? Okay.
Nope.
And on your application, you're saying no more than 12 total pieces of major recreational equipment, tent, camper, other kind of overnight shelter, that you're set on keeping that?
Yes, I understand that the hammocks were upset over Memorial Day, but that's also because of the city campgrounds, that we did them a favor. And so that's why there was so much more traffic down there. So, that's what happened that weekend. We don't usually do that, so, we try to keep it,
The reason that the 12 were there, that dated back to the controversy over the 3 lots at 502, 504, and 510.
correct?
Because those were all separate lots, and one of them, I believe, was a little bit separated.
Yes.
And that's where the 12 pieces came from. Of the,
So are we talking about mopeds and all of that also, or are we just talking about the campers and vehicles,
Well, in my view, this is campers and vehicles,
okay?
because people will be bringing in their bicycles and mopeds. and-
Sure. Because I have a group of campers that are here tonight that come from Greenwood that do bring down their mopeds. And each person has their own moped, so I wanted to make sure that that was still gonna be okay.
Well, unless board members want to make an amendment to these rules, if you think that's worthy, I personally,
I mean, they're not golf carts, you know, I mean, they get around on their mopeds and they go all over this town and spend quite a bit of money here.
I will have time for public comment, ma'am. Certainly will. Any other questions, comments, board members? My only, I'll give this folk from the city time to give their opinion too. My only beef is number 11, no amplified live music of any kind. That's a rock band. But in my view, setting up a 1,000-watt stereo,
We don't do that.
well, when you're on a board like this, ma'am, you see the worst.
I understand.
We don't see the good people. We see the bad ones. And city enforcement never sees the good people. They only see the bad ones, and you get a taste of what can go wrong. So, originally, quite a long time ago, I believe it was it was either one of those. I can remember proposing number 11, saying no amplified music of any kind to ensure no disruption of peace and quiet of surrounding property, residents, and passers-by. And that's definitely one of the reasons we even have zoning, is so that people don't do horrible things to each other, get them at each other's throats. However, acoustic instruments such as guitars are permitted, excluding drums and brass instruments. I admit I was very specific about that, because when you sit on a board like this, like I said, you see the worst. Now, I don't think you're going to do the worst by any means, but I've also been in court battles a couple, 3 times on this board. So I've learned that if in the law, you'd better say as much as you can, or somebody, not you, of course, but somebody's going to try to abuse it. So that's the one thing I would like to see changed, is the wording on number 11. As far as the only controversy in my mind as a board member is 5 dates or 11 dates. So I'll give the city, somebody from the city, time to speak.
So the city did propose the 5 dates to be more in line with the application for the other Vaughn Drive property that's down here, on the basis that both wanted to advertise these parkings. The 11 date application did not advertise. It was specifically included in those conditions that they were not allowed to advertise. So that is why the city's proposed to go back to the 5 dates that was approved with the 2020 application for the Vaughn Drive.
So your reasoning is, if you're advertising and deliberately trying to drum up business, limit it to the 5 dates?
We're just proposing it to be consistent and her application match more closely with that application than with the other one further in the footprint of the festivals.
And like I said, the reasoning is because the one with 5 dates was advertising actively.
That's really the only difference between the 2 applications that had been previously approved by the board.
And Nicole, what were those 5 dates?
The 5 dates were,
The first 5, Memorial
Yeah,
Day,
Memorial.
Labor Day, Chautauqua River Fest, Regatta.
Okay.
But if applicant does not advertise, then you have no beef with the 11 dates, as speaking from the viewpoint of Madison.
that's the only difference between the 2 applications this board had previously approved.
Well, Well, would you like to think it over, ma'am? Are you planning to actively advertise this on the
I'm
internet?
not, I don't need to. I don't need to advertise.
Okay, your signage down there that says RV,
It's been covered up,
Okay.
it's gone.
it hadn't been previously advertised.
So if they were to remove that and agree not to advertise this, you'd have no qualms about the 11 dates? Or at least it would allay a lot of your fears from the point of view of the city.
It's up to this board, really. There is a size difference in lot compared to the other one, which the other application did include vehicles, which would include those mopeds. So it's up to the board what they would want to do.
I'll take that to mean, okay. Board members, at this point, do you have any more questions for the city, for? Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Yep.
So, in summary, the position of the city of Madison seems to be that the more restrictive use to the 5 dates came about because of actively advertising and attempting to, well, to advertise on whatever source, internet or whatever. But if the thing is used by word of mouth, or people call up because they've been there and they're happy, then the less restrictive.
I think the
11 days.
city would consider word of mouth as advertisement.
Well, word of mouth is people just telling other people.
Yeah, the Hankins application was specific, that was only friends and family. That does not include word of mouth advertising.
If you want to say something, come on up.
That's what I have, is friends and family, okay? That's all I do.
Well, in the city, once again, we assume you're a decent and upstanding person and honest. Have no reason to believe anything else, but we've also seen the other way.
I understand that, and I'm just,
How do you define friends? How does the city enforce problems that arise? Who are friends? That, I believe, is one of considerations that even our legal department has brought up. Okay, well, thank you. Board members, once again, anything you want to say? Well, while you're pondering it, if anybody in the audience would like to speak for or against this. Now, before you begin, we believe in free speech here. This is your government, but there may well be a lot of people want to speak, so I'd like to ask you voluntarily limit yourself to about 2-3 minutes, all right? Fair enough?
Fair enough. Hello,
And you do have to give your name and address for the
I
record.
am Regina Watson, 2324 Morris Road, Indianapolis, Indiana. I've been coming to this town for probably 30 years. I've also told other people about this town because although I don't live here, I am planning to retire here because I love this town. I've seen all the pros and the cons and all the growing of this town. The cotton you made into a hotel. But what I'm asking you is not to forget that this is a tourist town. So anytime we come in, we spend money. This is the only place I think we go and camp that we don't cook while we're here because we have all our favorite places to eat here. And when we camp here, we eat here, we spend money here. And not to forget the camping community. We know you have hotels and Airbnbs and such, but you have, I know you have Clifty Falls, but that is not in town. We love being in town and being a part of in town. And we've always felt like guests when we're in town. We've always been treated with respect, and we just really love your town. And I always have. I love it here. So much I want to retire here. But don't forget the people that camp, that want to be in nature, that enjoy nature, that believe that you leave it better than when you first came here, you leave it better. And anytime you bring somebody, you have 34 camping spots down there. And there's been times that we've had campers over there, a place at Mary's, and we've had an Airbnb right down there. There's just not enough places for campers. And we spend a lot of money on our camping equipment. I mean, your campers run 50, 60,000, and then you got your trucks you're hauling with. So you got a lot of money invested. And we want to be a part of this community as well. So don't forget about us. I mean, we're not people that come down here and throw up tents. I mean, we love the community. We love being outside. And not only that, Mary, I've known her for probably 30 years now. She's a great neighbor to the campground. I've seen her let people park over there from the campground when it's been wet. She is a great neighbor to your campground. She always has been. Even when I didn't know her and I was camping at the campground, she always talked to people and telling them what's going on in town. And she's a great ambassador for your town. And she always has been. And not to let a couple more campsites go in. And I realize that your town is growing, and I know they're building some townhouses or what up on the side. But even on their site, it shows the camping area. So people that are buying those, they know what the site is. They're going to see campers. 20 paces across the street, there's campers. There's always going to be campers there. That's part of Madison, the city campground. We would just like to see you take us in consideration when you think about growing Madison, that we're not a bunch of nomads coming through your town. We spend real money here. We love your town as much as you do. I mean, this is a beautiful town. I think, as a matter of fact, it's even been the beautiful clean city, and of course all the flowers and stuff you've done. But also, this is the prettiest small town in the Midwest, and that was from the Ladies' Journal. I mean, Madison is huge, and I can't tell you how many people, when I post on Facebook, that I post when I'm down at the river or in Madison, you can't imagine, just by word of mouth, how many people have come here just because they've seen my posts or what I say. So don't forget about us, the people that come in and want to be a part of your city, that love your city, that take care of your city. Don't forget about the tourist, because your growth from 1980 to now is less. This is a tourist town. Don't forget about us. And like I said, Mary is a great neighbor to your camping grounds. You can get wood from her that I couldn't get. I mean, I wouldn't have had any wood. And she's just she's always been positive to the camping grounds. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've seen things happen that she could have complained about and didn't. She's just a great ambassador for your town, and I just hope that you take that in consideration. Anytime that you have something new come in, like when they decided to build up on the hill, they saw what was out there. You can't decide to build and then say, I don't like what's out in front of me, it must go. She's had that land since the 80s, and she all has it set in. She's done it properly, and I just want to be able to come to your town when things are sold out. It's just another avenue to bring more people in, and I hope you take that in consideration, because we all love your town.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Very well put. The mayor might offer you a job when you retire. That's off the record. Anybody else like to speak for or against? Yes, sir. Come up and give your name and address.
I manage the city campground.
Well, we do need your name
I'm
and
Douglas
address for the
Bucklard.
record. Pardon?
Douglas Bucklard,
Okay.
and I'm the campground host, manager, attendant, whatever you want to call it down there. I've been down there for 3 years. And a lot of the parking that I hear you guys talking about only occurs when we flood the bottoms, or the bottom's too wet to park the cars in, because that's the only parking we have left down there instead of getting everybody hung up in the bottom. Thanks to Ed and Mary, they let us park the cars over there on their property so they're not tied up on the road. Also, you were talking about earlier about music. We have 11 o'clock curfew at the campground. Everybody in the area knows about the 11 o'clock curfew. After 11 o'clock, there is no music. Even in the campground, I don't hear it from them, I don't hear it from the B&Bs, I don't hear it from nobody. And that's something, we don't have a problem down there with the music. I think it's a good deal because all 11 events that we have, were sold out. I'm begging for more spots. We're trying to talk the city into, working on that next area down there and increasing the campground. But, as of right now, our hands are tied because of some other things that's going on. So the 34 sites is all I got, and we need to add some way, I probably turned down, well, for this weekend, I probably turned down probably 200 campers because they've called me for sites, because I don't have them. So when we start limiting what we're gonna do with campers on special events, that's also cutting money back out of the money for the city. Because since I've took over the campground, you can check that the campground's doing quite well, financially wise. And so us all working together down there to make things more accessible, feasible, and everything that, for the city is, one of the big plus things. If there's gonna be a problem with campers in view, what's he gonna do when we go full service and we have campers down there from April 1st to October 31st? We're gonna be campers in view. I mean, are they gonna do away with the campground? I don't think so. So, I mean, that's something that we gotta look at with, people on that hill. Plus, we got campers down the road in the city that's been there since April, still sitting there. They camp there every weekend and stuff. And I thought that there was, limitations on what people could do. But I mean, I don't know the whole thing
Well,
about it, but I do know what's
excuse
going
me,
on
sir,
in the
that
campground.
issue arises because of zoning. Just beyond the campground is RA.
That's in the city.
Yeah, but it's a different zoning district with different zone requirements and so forth. You gotta look into that.
Well,
Anyway, that
that's
was
why
to
I'm asking,
partially answer
that's
your
why I'm asking you,
question.
because we're trying to extend the campground all the way down to include that next property that the city owns. That's the plans. And if we're gonna be doing that, then we need to know what's,
Well, if
what's
and
going
when
on
that
on-
ever happens, I'm
in the
sure
area.
you'll deal with all that then.
because, I mean, that's more money for the city. We had campground, we add to it. So, I mean, but I'm just saying that, when, some of the things that they're bringing up is stuff because if the bottom gets flooded this weekend, where am I gonna park 34 campers of their cars? I can't park them over at the fish house now because that's private property. That's private owned. We did do that. I had permit to do that for one season. We can't do that no more. So where am I gonna put the cars? In the middle of the street there, and then I gotta deal with the fire marshal because he can't get emergency vehicles through. So, I mean, I have to maintain the right of ways down there with everything that's going on. So, Ed and Mary, I talked with them and they volunteered to say, yeah, go ahead and, you can use that. But I mean, it was due to the circumstances of the wet bottoms.
But if they start having campers there, and then you need to move cars there,
We'll just work together, we just work together like we've done for the last 3 years that I've been down there, that,
would there even be enough room if there's campers already there to move 34 cars or however many cars you'd have to move?
we could work, we'd work it out and stuff, I mean, but, it does create a problem. I mean,
Right.
I will
Right.
say that, it does
Yeah.
create a problem. Parking down there is at a premium because there is no parking. I mean, you take these 40-foot campers and you put them on a 40-foot side, the only place to park them is down in the bottoms. Well, if it's been flooded or rained for 2 weeks or a week, I can't park people in the bottom and get them hung up. So I gotta have someplace to work, do it.
Now, do you limit the number of recreational toys, vehicles in each spot that you rent?
No,
You don't,
no.
just whatever they could fit in there?
They come in, most campers, I'm gonna say probably 60% of all the campers have, they either rent a golf cart or they bring their golf carts. So you got their vehicle and the golf cart. And normally in the campsite only area is their camper and the golf cart. Because their vehicles that tow the campers are parked in another area. So, I mean, and we don't have a problem with golf carts or even when the moped people was camping there when they come in, we don't have a problem with it. They come in, they obey the 5 mile an hour speed limit. There's not noise or anything. Even when I had the sickle rally down there, we didn't have a problem with noise. Earlier this year, when the Legion had their annual meeting, there wasn't a
Now,
noise
how far in
problem.
advance do you take reservations?
Reservations are open the first business day of the year of that year. We don't do anything from this year to next. We can't carry over from
Right.
year to year.
So if
So-
you're full and people say, where can I camp, do you give recommendations, or you just say,
I tell them I'm full. I tell them, I say, call Clifty, and stuff, because a lot of them do, and stuff, because a lot of the other areas around here are seasonal campers. So, I mean, I do have a couple people that, I probably get 100 campers a year want to do seasonal, and I send them to other campsites, because the fact of it is, because we don't do seasonal, because we got enough turnover of campers down there that, and the cost of it.
Okay, well, thank you, sir. That was very informative. Somebody else in the audience, there was a lady had her hand up a while ago. Yes, ma'am, come on up.
My name is Tracy Keller Green. I live at 1014 Park Avenue, and I've lived there for 40 years. My property is a double lot, and it extends south to East First Street, just north of the Bennett property. And I'm here in support of the Bennett's application for a conditional use permit to allow camping for selected events. Again, as has been stated here, the city campground is right across the street from them, and we don't seem to have any problem with that. There are campers and tents and playground equipment and things like that further east, which may be in the buffer zone, but my understanding is the buffer zone is guided by city ordinance, so that would fall under city laws.
Well, yes, ma'am. Each zoning district, there are all kinds of, this in question is called open space. So
Yes, I
there are a
know.
lot more restrictions than just on down the road, and some of that's residential agriculture.
But
That's,
I think they
different.
had a renewal too, so I'm just saying I support their application, and if there are issues, then they could be brought at the renewal process the next year, so.
Thank you very much.
Could I submit my letter as well?
Yes, you may.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Now, we'll take a moment. Board, I move that we accept this letter from Tracy Keller Green into the permanent record.
I'd like to see it first.
Oh, it's essentially what she said.
I hope what they said about the campground is correct, because I just want to let you know that this year,
Could you wait one moment, ma'am? We have a
sure,
motion on
I'm
the floor
sorry.
here. Well, I move that we accept this. Do we have a second?
second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, pose no. The letter is accepted into the record. Okay, yes.
yes, I would just like to say on camping, just don't think of campers as, I mean, they're expensive too, but I just want to let you know, as far as camping in this area, this year, campers and RVs were a 56.29 billion. In the next 10 years, it'll be 117 billion. So people are buying more and more campers. So campers aren't gonna go away. And like I said, this is a tourist town. So please keep campers in mind when you think about tourists coming in. I mean, I know you have hotels and stuff, but we like the nature. We like being in nature. We like breathing. We like outside. So please, 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 don't look at campers other than just being outside.
Okay,
Okay?
thank you very much. Anybody else like to speak for or against this proposal? Yes, sir. If you give your name and address for the record.
Gary Rowland, 487 South Peterman Road, Greenwood, Indiana. I just want to let you know, 20 years ago, the young lady that just spoke brought me here for the first time I camped, and I've not quit camping here since that day. I've been here 10 times a year, if not more. We have actually stayed in your new hotel, which we loved. It was wonderful. But we also like to camp. We come to the car shows. We come to every event you have. I just left the chocolate shop. You know, I mean, I spent $30 on chocolate. You know, so I mean, everything we do here has got to do with, we want to fit in. We tried to buy property here. Well, we got shut down on that, but that's another story. But we're still looking, so we really love this town. I mean, this town means a lot to us as much as it means to you. Just because you live in it don't mean you like it more than I do. You just got lucky and got property, that's all. So, you know, I'm just saying, we come to the car shows, we bring our cars, we buy gas. We got the scooters, we got a golf cart, we buy gas for those. Not the golf cart, it's electric. You know, so I mean, we're just saying, we really enjoy. We've stayed in your camp. Well, actually, this coming up, we've got campsites in your campground. We have the bed and breakfast across from your campground, and we're hoping to have spots at Mary's, but that's up to you guys, not up to me. But that's what I'm saying. I have brought probably 20 people here. Just me saying, if you go anywhere, go to Madison. I mean, that's just one. There's nothing you can't do in Madison. There's something for everybody. So I just want to let you know that don't put a stop to what we do because of for whatever reason. We just love it here. And we want to keep coming here. So that's really all I have to say.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments, board members at this point? We'll take one or two more people.
Hi, good evening. My name is Michelle Fletcher. I live at 314 Poplar Street in Madison, and I'm here to support Marion and Ed Bennett. I think they should have the luxury and the right to continue on enjoying their land as they have. If they've worked, I've watched them their whole life work to acquire it and build it up, and their family come and love it. And I just, you know, I want them to have the same rights as everyone else and to be able to enjoy what they've worked so hard for and bring people in to enjoy it. These folks' stories are wonderful, and that could continue to be like Marianne's family's traditions, you know, her kids and their grandkids and these fine folks that come to camp there can pass these stories. And it's just gonna beautify not just the memory and the experiences of our town. And I just think it would be a shame to take that opportunity from someone that is so dedicated to it and to make something beautiful something ugly. So I support what they're trying to do for everyone's family here and to come. And if it can be done across the street, it can be done on their side of the street. You know, no matter where you build or where you buy, you're going to have a neighbor. So if you build, like my house, my neighbor, I can reach out and touch them. Or I could reach out and touch a camper that's not going to be there all year. So there's pros and cons, you know. If you have scenery that campsite's going to be empty part of the year, it's going to be full part of the year. So there's a benefit there instead of, I don't think it should be looked at like it's going to be an eyesore. You know, I don't know if that makes any sense. So I just want to be here and support what they're trying to do. And I think it would be a shame if there were stipplings on their opportunities. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, we have time for one more. I think a lot of people have made very good points here.
Hi, I'm Lisa Hammack. My address is 6126 North, 400 West in Madison, and we own property beside the Bennett's, behind the Bennett's. I spoke again at the last time. The fact that it's zoned open space does not allow camping is a problem, on a continuous basis, 11 weekends, charging people. 2 weeks ago, the sign was still up. I took a picture, it still said RV lots right above the firewood for sale. One of my big concerns is the road is only 10 feet wide behind the house, and that's where the gravel road comes out. So an average camper is 8.5 feet wide, and that's only the camper. That doesn't include the mirrors. So how do they get out, right? So if they have to go all the way to the end of Fillmore Alley, they go around our house. We have a house at 1036 East Fillmore also, and 1035 East Fillmore. They can't make the curve. So afraid a camper will definitely hit the house. So possibly they need an exit onto Vaughn Drive. I don't know if they have to get a permit from the city to do that, but that road is not wide enough for campers.
I have a question.
Sure.
So it sounds like they've been camping there, for several years. Do you know of any issues where
I just know the
a camper
house-
came onto your property or
Oh, yeah,
caused
they have,
damage or?
there's no way to turn around. If you can't get out, if they don't turn around on their property, they have to turn around on some of our property down through the road. We've had to,
One moment.
replace gutters on the house at 1036 just from people hitting it. So,
Have you ever reported that to the police?
no, but I just realized, if the road's only 10 foot wide, when you meet two cars, somebody pulls over as it is, so when you meet a camper, you're not gonna be able to get over. And on Vaughn Drive, when they're dumping sewer, it's not a problem. And I wanted to compliment the manager of the campground, because it is nice. It is quiet, there's not any issues, but if there's no one to police this campground, such as a manager that's there full-time, who's gonna take care of the noise problems? And there could definitely be noise problems. We used to camp growing up, and when there was 12 of us kids with our friends and families rolling out of cars, we made a lot of noise. We had a good time, but we made a lot of noise. Also, city utilities, water is an issue. The city and my husband and Bernard Johnson just spent a lot of money putting a new 6-inch water line in, going down Fillmore, but that doesn't serve their area. So if water is gonna be an issue for the rest of the people that are on Vaughn, what's the impact gonna be? More people? I don't know, because I don't live down there. And then we're setting a precedent, so does everybody start having campers in their yards and in all the open space? I know, on the west end of town, we owned property in front of Dr. Canada's house, and it was zoned open space. We could have had campgrounds, but I don't think that's the right thing to do. It's not zoned correctly, and it hurts other people's property values. We also own property on the other side of the Bennett, so do we open a campground? I think there's a place to do that, and I think camping's great, but I don't think that in a historic district we need to have campers. That's just my opinion. I think, and also, I'm not so opposed to 5 dates, but 11 dates is a lot, and can you answer a question? What are 12 pieces of equipment? Is that include all the vehicles, or what's that include?
Oh, that meant 12 trailers, since assuming that each trailer had one car pulling it.
So 12 campers?
Yes, but that is the proposal. That can always be changed.
Aren't there guidelines with the state?
Well, like I explained, no, not to my knowledge, unless our legal department knows of any.
I looked it up, and I think it's over like 3 or 4 campers. There are guidelines for sewer, garbage, water, electrical, and actual pads. So might be
Well, in a
something.
minute, we have a man who can answer that, probably, the campground manager.
Yeah. Yeah, but,
So do you have anything else to add, ma'am?
no, thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you
I
very
had a
much.
question for her while she's up there. Jessica Butler wrote a paper saying that property values would not be affected. Do you guys have any, realtor to say otherwise, or?
Well, actually, I do have my real estate license, and as I've been showing properties down there, everyone's going, so what's gonna be across from here? Do you own that? Can I buy that? Because I don't want people in front of me. So, again, that is gonna affect the view. And the campground that the city owns, that's down by the riverfront, is nice. It is really nice. They do an excellent job. And I'm not opposed to camping whatsoever, but this is a historic district, and I think it should remain that way. That's why we're so popular. It's a beautiful town, with a lot of history. And if we start allowing campers everywhere,
Well, we have in the past, that's the issue.
yeah, I think it's starting to set a.
And we
wrong
have the
precedent.
big problem, private property.
I agree, I understand that too.
Private property, if a man or a woman owns a piece of property, then there's an awful lot they can do to it. And an adjacent property owner may not like it, but sometimes, sorry,
But it is zoned open space,
yes.
so I don't think if you start
And
renting it, it's not really,
And in the past, these restrictions, which I assume you've read, were an attempt to make a compromise between private property owners' rights and everybody else. Because that's unfortunately what this board is faced with frequently, unless the city makes a specific ordinance. And then once they make a law, then that's the law. But in this case, as of yet, this board has attempted to strike a compromise between people that want to use their land for campers. And like I said at the start, there have been several lots down here, some in open space and one in residential agriculture. The dividing line is just, virtually it's just west of the city campground.
right, the people in front of
And
us.
there are very different requirements for, and rules and stringencies for open space versus residential agriculture. Residential agriculture is what you would typically think would be out in the country somewhere.
Right,
Well, this is such an old town, and it was so convoluted, and it was so laid out before there were any laws, that we run into these issues all the time of trying to make a very old town fit modern usages.
this would be a great opportunity to put a campground somewhere, on the outskirts so that it doesn't affect
Well,
our historic
That
homes.
would be nice, but somebody's got to do it. Somebody's got to come up with the money.
Yeah, that's right.
Well,
Thank you.
thank you very much, ma'am. And yes, sir, campground manager, if you could speak and answer directly her question about any,
Yes, I just got one thing. She made a comment about the sewage. Well, I'm gonna say 90% of all the campers that park from the campground on out, they come to the campground and they use the dump station there at the campground. And they pay a $5 fee for the, usage of the campground. They don't, so it goes into the city sewer, but but they use the city, dump station to, dump their campers before they head home.
and she has made a comment, is there any kind of state law about governing how many campers or whatever can be on a lot?
We, the city itself, we have one camper per lot.
Well, I mean, I think she had in mind that.
How many campers in a certain area?
Right.
No, there is not. There's nothing that the state or anything governs that says that you gotta have, well, sorry about that. You gotta have so many square feet per camper or anything like that.
Okay.
Because, if you look at our campers, we have basically 25 feet between campers. every 25 feet is a new campsite.
Okay, well, that answers that question that was brought up.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, sir, you want to speak?
I'm Patrick Tevenall, 106 East Third Street. I own 3 homes adjacent to this parcel. If I could just clarify a little bit, is the proposal 12 campers on this property? I was a little bit late. There were 2 times advertised for the meeting on the city website.
Yes. Oops. Oh, here we go.
Yeah, it was. Here it is. Scott.
Yes, sir, it was here, number 7, no more than 12 total pieces of major recreational equipment, which is defined in the zoning ordinance. Tent camper, other kind of overnight shelter permitted on the total, well,
And
that
for,
needs to be written. That was for, like I pointed out, that was taken from what was done for 502, 504, and 510 East Vaughn.
and for how many
That was.
periods of a year would this be allowed?
And what she is requesting is essentially 11 dates: Memorial Day, Labor Day, Chautauqua, Riverfest, Regatta, Independence Day. If it's different from the regatta dates, that was
So major holiday
Yeah.
weekends.
that was a leftover from COVID.
I would like to voice my opposition to this on the grounds of the fact that it is zoned for open space. I've appreciated the Board of Zoning Appeals' willingness to work with property owners in the past for a compromise. However, I did also speak against allowing that. So I'd like to continue to oppose the use of open space ground for commercial camping. If it's specific weekends, small amounts of campers for personal use, families, of the people who own it, that's one thing in my mind. But to set up commercial facilities renting for campers on the river does not fit with what open space zoning is there for, in my opinion. Thank you.
Patrick, let me ask you a question while you're there. So are you opposed to the 5 dates?
No,
Okay.
I'm more opposed to the use of it as a commercial facility. If they'd like to use it on holiday weekends for family, it's their property. But to me, open space zoning and commercial campground just don't jive.
I might add at this point, this is something that begs for the city to make a specific ordinance or whatever. Yes, sir.
Hi again. I just got a few things to say. She was talking about how to get the campers into the campground. Mary has 2 sites. She don't have 12 sites. She has 2 sites. And we come in through the front. We don't come in through the back. So there will be no opportunity of us getting in her property or whosever property it may be. But we're not gonna hit none of her properties. So, and we have our own water supply, so we fill our water up, we can pull in, we don't need water. We have water built into the campers. And, so it's like, she just needs the space for people like us to come in when your place is full and the bed and breakfast is full, everything's full, we need somewhere to go if we wanna be here. Now, during those, as you well know, during all these events that she wants, this town is full. I mean, I don't care where you go up on the hill, I don't care where you go. We're gonna have to pull off on the side of the road and just camp in a camper because everything is full here. So that's why, I mean, I hope that you guys decide to let her do this because I wanna keep coming here. I mean, simple as that. But just to say, make sure we ain't getting in her property. My brother-in-law has parked my camper there forever and we've never had any issues. We don't party, we're old, we go to sleep early. My daughter never comes out of the camper, so, she's 14, come on. I mean, she ain't coming outside. So, just to let you know, we're here to have a good time, not to destroy your city. I appreciate your time, thank you.
Thank you. I think unless somebody has something absolutely new and different to say. Yes, sir, come on up.
Tony Hammock. I live 6126 North, 400 West. One of the people doing the building of the homes down there. I think these people are all fine people, ain't no doubt about that part. When that campsite is overflowing, then you put these people here too. You know, it looks like an anthill down there on these holidays. You know, it's kind of congested. Just kind of keep that in mind. And I'd like to have a little time to get a support group for myself and us building, if, you know, with the letters and some things like that, if I need to do so. Thank you.
Okay. Board members, I think at this time I'll declare the hearing closed. I think we've heard a very good section of comments.
You know, I've got a question for Mary, though.
Yes.
Where's Mary? And this is just a guess, you don't need to give me an exact number. But if you do 10-foot setbacks from all the property boundaries, and if you would do 25 feet between campers, how many campers could, it's like a math, how many campers could fit in?
You know, I don't want 12 campers down there. You know, if I
What's the
have
most you want down there?
2 to 3 at the most, I know where that 12 camper came here about.
Okay.
That was Mark, I know whose property he owned. I know, I was here for that meeting. I never wanted that to begin with.
Okay, so what's the maximum you want?
3
3.
at the most.
Okay, that's all I need to know.
And like the gentleman that just spoke, you know, we'll make everything come off of Vaughn Drive. We're not gonna bother the hammocks in their building. But I also wanna say, no, I'm not gonna say it. But anyway,
Well,
we'll
there's
just
a big
make
difference
everybody.
between 12 campers and 3 campers.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
and I would never want
Right.
that. I don't
Okay.
want that. I don't want the
Okay.
headache.
Okay, very good. 3 campers. Board members, I'm going to declare the public comments time closed because I think we've heard very good cross-section of comments. Board members, any suggestions to these various criteria?
Well, you know, I go back to Mr. Tevenall and Ms. Hammock. Does that make a difference, the maximum number of campers, when we talk about 5 dates compared to 11 dates? If one of you want to come up and say something, I'd appreciate that.
Certainly can.
Because that's a major difference in the number of
It
campers.
is a huge difference.
Huge.
12 versus 3 is huge.
Exactly.
And 5 weekends versus 11 weekends, huge. I don't care if they have their kind of family come and camp, but I know these aren't family members. You can tell they're not family. They're just people that are renting and camping. Well, you've become friends, right? You've become friends, and we have friends too, and I hate to.
30 years is pretty close.
Yeah, I mean, but we could do the same thing down the other end, and
Right.
we have more property, and I don't want to do the same thing. So 3 is not so bad. And 5 holidays or 5 weekends is not so bad, but every weekend is not a
Right.
good thing.
Right, I
And a lot
understand.
of it is the street, and, you know, Vaughn is, you know, 2 lanes.
Right.
Fillmore is really a 1-lane road. It's an alley. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
I also agree. 3 campers makes a big difference,
Right.
5 weekends makes a big difference. I still remain opposed to commercial use of the property, though.
Board member?
We're down here a lot, so 5 weekends ain't gonna help us none. So now you're gonna lose money for just, what, 7 more weekends? I mean, come on. We wanna be here. We wanna spend our money here. We just wanna be here. I just wanna tell you that, so. The 5 and 2, I mean, that shouldn't really matter. She's got 2 campers, that's down here, when we come down, and she has a spot for 1 more, which has not been here since I've been coming, so just wanted to let you know that.
Okay, thank you. Well, this part's closed. No more comment from the audience. Board members, we can go through this. If you'd like to make changes, if you would like to strike, if you think it's appropriate, strike down to fewer than the 11 that are listed here. What's your feeling, board members?
Well, the one big change is obviously is the 12 campers down to 3. So that's
Right.
the one change there.
In my view, I see no problem with these 11 because we have done it before.
Well, is Rooster Tail Music, is that not connected with Regatta? So really, you've got Rooster Tail Music, Independence Day, and Regatta are basically the same weekend, correct? So that's 3 weekends going down to one.
So actually, like I said, F there, Independence Day, that was a artifact from COVID. Because nobody knew when or if some of these festivals were gonna happen during COVID. So that can be struck. We can just strike Independence Day if different from regatta dates. Is that your? All right. Soup stew, chili and brew, seems to me appropriate. Rooster Tail, you say that's the same time as regatta.
I believe so, correct?
Well, then let's strike that one because that goes along with regatta. Vintage Thunder, that's a different date from regatta. River for Weinstein and Barrel, seems to me a good. And the Golf Cart Poker Run. So what we have now is essentially 1, 2, 3, 4. We got 9 different dates. The 2 are struck. F and H are struck. The basic rules, you don't have it, we've done that before. Got no problem there. Number 7, change the wording, no more than 3 total pieces of major recreational equipment, et cetera. Do you want to strike out tents? That was an artifact from 502 Vaughn Drive, et cetera. Do you want to, what's your feeling, board members?
I'd strike it.
Yep.
Strike it.
Okay. Other kind of overnight shelter or accommodation, that was an attempt to cover all bases. Do you want to strike that? What's your feelings, board members?
I would just go with camper.
And I phrase that as major recreational equipment because that's defined in the definitions of the zoning ordinance. You want to go with that? So we strike other kind of overnight shelter or accommodation. And I would like to change the verbiage on number 11 to what I read. No amplified music of any kind to ensure no disruption of peace and quiet of surrounding property, residents, or passers-by. However, acoustic instruments such as guitars are permitted, excluding drums and brass instruments. Well, then any other changes, board members? Additions?
I had one concern that Nicole and I were looking at when there was comments about whether or not there was regulations regarding this type of use regarding campgrounds. There's a question of whether or not there would be a permit required based on the type of use and the number of days and the camper usage. So I think that would be something I think we should probably review to include before I would say it needed to be reviewed before the board made a call on this, frankly. But it's up to you guys.
In our previous applications, didn't we define the time that the campers could arrive and the time they had to be?
Yeah, we did. And it is here, number 1, before official beginning of the holiday or event after 3, and then that has to be, number 1 and 2 deal with time of arrival and time of departure.
So if you like to come in early for the festival, we might come in 4 days early. So could it be the same as the campground, identical as the campground only?
Well, we've had this battle several times, and this is what we settled on, and it's consistent with everybody else who's wanted to use their property for camping. So, the sake of consistency with what we've done before, because this board cannot be judged as arbitrary and capricious, as it's called by the law. That if you do things that aren't consistent, if you don't follow the rules, sometimes there are many ways you get drug into court, and boards like this can be overruled by means of being called arbitrary and capricious. And that's why we kind of stick with what we've done before.
So, Devin, thinking about previous applicants, I don't think the permitting, question ever came up.
Right, and the statute is, it has a differentiation between temporary campground, which is where I think these other campgrounds fell under. And this would be right on the edge of whether or not it fit within temporary or not temporary, which is a difference there with the number of dates and the number of campers.
Well, the city is certainly at liberty to clarify the ordinances. Just a minute. City's at liberty to clarify, and it definitely, this is screaming for some sort of ordinance or an amendment.
I'm just telling you, that's what the Indiana code says. There was conversation about it earlier. I'm looking at the Indiana code.
So you're thinking you need more time to look into it?
I'm just saying there's a difference between temporary and not temporary, and there's a difference of whether or not you'd have to apply for a certain type of permit.
Does it give any kind of definition?
It has a lot of different definitions.
Well, we could also put into a motion that this is, if we move to grant this, that it's subject to any requirement in the future for a permit. And that would be about all we could do, given otherwise we gotta table it for weeks. And maybe not even have a definite, clear legal answer. Because I've been on this board long enough to know sometimes the law is. Any other comments, board members?
I'd like to ask that it would be tabled as an interested party who owns adjacent property to see if it does need to conform to state law.
I'd like Saturday to get there in a couple weeks.
Well, board members, any opinions?
I think we just put it in the motion.
I'm in agreement.
Like
Yes, sir.
Nicole said, you could also have a special meeting to address just this concern. I mean, it's important enough to consider. I mean, you could always schedule a special meeting and give notification of the meeting.
Well, we could, and we could also make a motion that includes that if sometime it's determined definitely that they need to have some sort of a permit, then just say you gotta get a permit. Any other questions, comments?
But my question is, if they're using we're using the same criteria as we did at the foot of East Street, how is that different?
I'm not saying that it is or isn't.
So they might need a permit for that one? Okay, there you go.
Well, then we need a motion. I move that we approve.
If you're making a motion, you need to be permitted for that.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes. Very appropriate, conditional use. We'll go through our findings of fact here. 9 criterion, if some of you have never been in a meeting like this before, and they're specified by state law. We don't make these up locally. The category proposed here is we have used 749 or 752. We'll use 752, which is one we've used before. Do you agree number 752 is in fact conditional use. Mr. Ferris?
I do think it fits in with that, category.
Mrs. Burkhart?
It is allowed with conditional use in open space.
And we have used that one before, so I think that's the appropriate one. Number 2, is this harmonious in accordance with general objectives or specific objectives of city's comprehensive plan, zoning ordinance? Mr. Ferris?
Yeah, I think it, does fit in with the comprehensive plan. I mean, as it was stated by several people, this is a, tourist town. We welcome, tourists and tourism. And we've, as you've mentioned in the past, voted on similar applications and, decided that it did fit.
Mrs. Burkhart?
Yes, I believe it's harmonious when certain conditions are applied.
And in the past, we've agreed that it's been harmonious. So I think that one's met. Number 3, design, constructed, maintain harmonious, appropriate appearance with existing or intended character of the general vicinity. And it won't change the essential character of the same area. Mr. Ferris?
I think if we consider the conditions and terms that we just discussed, I do agree that it, will be designed and maintained in a harmonious fashion.
Mrs. Burkhart?
I agree with the same comments, and I'll just reiterate that as long as we apply conditions that we've applied previously, then I think it can be harmonious.
The essential character, part of it is open space, and part of it, frankly, is where Madison has its multitudes of various festivals and things, and some of them are really, really big. So there's kind of a double character about the area, so I think it fits in with one aspect of it. Number 4, hazardous or disturbing to existing or future neighboring uses. Mr. Ferris?
No, I don't believe it will. I think, if there was a problem with, the purpose, of this application, there would have been documented complaints about, them being, disturbing to the neighborhood during those times. That's my feelings.
Mrs. Burkhart?
No, I don't think it'll be disturbing, as I've previously said, when there are conditions applied.
The disturbance when the whole area down there has got this split nature of partly being just the enjoyment of the river and the quiet of it all, and then partly the large festivals. It's such a dichotomy that I think that this one will fit in with the festivals. Number 5, this is the one about served adequately by utilities, fire, police, et cetera, and so forth. Mr. Ferris?
I do believe it will be served. I mean, they've got, the opportunity to, use the city, campground for waste disposal. And like one of the, members of the audience commented, you know, the campers today have onboard, water storage. And I think, all of the conditions for, public facilities and services is met. I don't see this causing any more problem than any other, property usage downtown during these events.
Mrs. Burkhart?
I agree. and as I said, with conditions set forward.
And I think, given 3 more campers that are pretty self-contained and at least enough sewage treatment to handle 34 campers in the city lot, I think that one's met. Number 6, will this create excessive requirements at public expense for facilities and services, not detrimental to the economic welfare of the community? Mr. Ferris?
I don't believe that, 3 campers will create any excessive requirements at the public expense. And I definitely don't think it's gonna be detrimental to the economic welfare of the community. I mean, the tourism dollars is part of our community.
Mrs. Burkhart?
I agree, I see no detriment to the economic welfare.
And certainly there will no be requirements for public facilities, and it's certainly not going to hurt the economic welfare of Madison. I think that one's met. Number 7, involve uses, activities, processes, materials, equipment, conditions of operation detrimental to any person's property or the general welfare by reason of excessive production of traffic noise, smoke, fumes, glare, odors. Mr. Ferris?
I don't see any reason to believe that any of those things are gonna be a problem as long as we address them with the specific conditions, for this application.
Mrs. Burkhart?
I agree with the limited number of campers and limited weekends we've established.
And I tend to agree with Mrs. Burkhart. Limited number of campers is 3 more vehicles. I don't think that will overwhelm what's already there. Number 8, vehicular approaches designed not to create interference with traffic on surrounding public thoroughfares. Mr. Ferris?
Yeah, I mean, I think, the property owner needs to be clear on what the, access points are for bringing campers in. But I've been down there and I really don't see any issues with that.
Mrs. Burkhart?
No, as we said, with limited campers and dates, I see no problem.
And I think as long as it's all done off Vaughn Drive, there will be no problem. Number 9, this is about loss or damage of natural, scenic, historic features. Mr. Ferris?
Yeah, I mean, again, we've got other campgrounds in the same vicinity. We've got other property owners that, we've allowed campers for specific events. And I don't think it's, destructive to any of those things that are listed.
Mrs. Burkhart?
I agree with Mr. Ferris's comments.
I don't even think that one applies in this case. Well, we've gone through our finding of fact. Time for a motion. I move we grant a conditional use for a period of 1 year, using the submitted criteria, striking F, striking H. Number 7, to read no more than 3 pieces of major recreational equipment or campers. And number 11, strike that and read no amplified music of any kind to ensure no disruption of peace and quiet of surrounding property, residents, passers-by. However, acoustic instruments such as guitars are permitted, excluding drums and brass instruments. And I will add number 12, all entrance and exit will be off Vaughn Drive.
Second.
Will we discuss about a permit?
Yes. One moment, second. Number 12 was off Vaughn Drive. And number 13, if in the future the city decides that a permit is needed, the applicant will be required to apply for one.
Second.
And the second agrees, so we have a motion and a second. Do we have a roll call?
Nancy Burkhart?
Yes.
Rick Ferris?
Yes.
Scott Baldwin?
Yes. have your conditional use. Well, we will move on to the next item. Under new applications, 1123 West Main Street, Peter Mulligan Ventures, requesting a variance from development standards to add a garage with upstairs apartment, requesting 3-foot setback on east property line, and that's R8. And yes, sir, would somebody come up and speak to the board about what you intend to do? And give your name and address for the record, please.
Yeah, my name is Robert Ford. I live at 1211 Hatteras Way, and I'm the owner of 1123 West Main Street. A brief history, you know, I've grown up in the country. I've always had access to family farm and stuff. I've moved into town, living in the condos. Very limited amount of space to do the things that I'm accustomed to within, you know, a common garage. So for some period of time, I've been seeking an opportunity downtown to either purchase a garage, a storage building, something. This opportunity came up. I can see it from the window of my condo, from the stairway in the back. So it's ideal for me, an opportunity to buy this piece of property so that I could construct a garage and enjoy some of the things I want to do. So that was the sole purpose for me buying this property at the time. The reason for the variance, the property is only 38 feet wide. I want to construct a 2-car garage. Yeah. Oh, I thought you were asking me a question.
No, go ahead.
Two-car garage, 20 feet wide, that's modest width for a 2-car garage. That allows me 18 feet to maintain the existing driveway to the existing carport behind the home. So it's making the best use of that space there. What I'd like to do, I've read a copy of the objections, and I would like to address some of the concerns in that, if there's no other questions about my purpose.
And if I could ask you to wait 1 second, we do have
Sure.
board members, you've received and read this letter to which he refers. I move we accept this letter into the public record.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Letter is accepted. Okay, go ahead, sir.
Let me ask a question before you, sir. So are you doing 1-story or 2-story?
I'm asking to build a 2-story.
Okay.
So the sole purpose was to build a garage. In that process, to extend that up to another level for additional storage was my first thought. Adding potentially bathroom facilities and a kitchen facility so that friends and family could stay there, and potentially be a revenue stream for me at some points also considered. The primary purpose was for the garage for personal storage and doing things and workspace, man cave a little bit, if you will. Was the original purpose of the property. Is the letter that was accepted in delivered to you, the letter from the Williams and signed by a number of?
Yes,
Okay.
Kevin and Angie Williams, and has a little petition here on the back.
In that letter, there's a quote, there's a mix of owners living in the premises, rental properties, and a limited number of Airbnb type locations, end quote. I think that does speak directly to the current character of the neighborhood. It's a neighborhood of mixed-use properties, not currently just single residential area. They have a statement, quote, there are no 2-story type buildings, nor are there any multifamily use properties in the neighborhood, end quote. And this is simply not true. If you go 1 block to the east or 1 block to the west, you will find several properties with small buildings on the back with people living in the alley. Some actually have addresses and some do not. But there also two-story garages within that distance of the area. Also, during the remodel of the garage across the street by Ms. Hale, one of the signatories to the letter that you just admitted, she admitted to the record, she told me herself firsthand that she had included an apartment in that garage.
One moment, you'll have a chance, ma'am.
This neighborhood has seen, another quote, this neighborhood has seen recent investment in several properties in the past few years, all of which have preserved the character of this section of town. And it goes on to say, we like the character that has survived for many years and we seek to preserve it. There have been some homes that have been remodeled. There's some that are still in the process of being remodeled or renovated, and some still in need of investment. Some of these have been improvements. Some have also changed the character of the neighborhood. The Williams themselves have removed a large portion of foliage in their backyard adjacent to my project, replacing a large portion of grassy areas with a large parking lot, driveway, and removed a large tree. So they've removed foliage and replaced it with gravel. I'm not questioning their right to do so, but it's inconsistent with their claims in the letter. They've also placed a large portable yard barn adjacent to the property that is closer to the property line than the 10 feet that is specified. So I'm not asking to do much more than others have done in the area. Ms. Comstock, who wasn't required to sign the letter, I didn't deliver her letter, but she chose to be a signatory. She's at the corner of Marine and the alley. Purchased the home next to her simply so no one else could live there, and stated to me directly herself that the home was in disrepair and had a great deal of mold inside. So what I'm seeking to do is, well, I'll go on. In the section direct impact to our property, the proposed building height would reduce the proposed building height and reduced offset from the property would result in our views being significantly impacted. I don't believe so. I have some photos that I can share with you, if you will. Can I bring some photos up?
Sure.
So while photo number one is, it's me in a pen, right? So it's not a professional rendering. But it is from the view of the window on the Williams property. It kind of shows, in my best estimate, where the building will be. So that's where the black lines are. So my building will start at the back of the little yard barn that exists. Where the yard barn is and forward towards the alley will be a concrete pad for parking. And then from the back of that building will be about the front of mine, and it comes back. The pole is about 32, 33 feet. So I will come back to about the pole and then 20 feet wide. The photo number two is kind of a direct on look. That kind of shows, if you were looking straight at that orange, again, kind of crayon looking drawing, shows where my building would likely be. The building number three kind of shows the location of the yard barn and its impact to the windows of the Williams. And for perspective, the pole, the utility pole there, give or take, is very close to the property line.
So you're saying this White House here is the Williams house?
Yes, the White House is the Williams house. And then the last, I'm standing in the parking lot of the condominiums, much closer to the river, so that you can see, where my building would exist to the left in the drawing, to the left or west of that utility pole. A great deal of space still remains open for the Williams.
And one moment.
Okay.
Board member, I move we accept these photographs into the public record.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. They're accepted. Okay. Board members, do you have any questions for the applicant? Oh, you're not done?
continue
You
for a
got
moment?
more? Sure, go ahead.
Another quote to reduce our overall yard use. Of course, a permanent structure will. I mean, it's a building. You know, I think the view from that home would be minimally impacted as shown in the photos. So the next section, potential impact to our property values, they make the statement, improvement by our neighbors to their properties is always appreciated and contribute to the property values of our neighborhood. And that's exactly what I'm trying to do. I completely agree with that statement. It's my intention to continue investment that's taken place in the neighborhood by removing a rotting small yard barn, the one shown on my property in the photo, and replace it with a new permanent structure that the neighborhood can be proud of. My next comment, you did say that you would entertain discussions about the Airbnb, so the comment, we are greatly concerned about this Airbnb plan and request second living space, and the request for a second living space looking down on our yards. It's a little ironic if you look at the house in question by the Williams. It's a two-story house, very tall, on a high grade, and is currently looking down on my property. So it's kind of ironic that they're in the position now that they are complaining would negatively impact them, being put in the same situation. And lastly, the last bullet that I have anyway, it's ironic that the Williams stated in their letter that the proposed building size and location will block the river view from the home at 1123 West Main Street. 1123 is my property where I'm locating the building. And I've been very careful and spent a lot of time with the location and the size of the building, and the impact to me and my property, as well as my neighbors, would be minimal. So, you know, really in closing, I'd like to say I want to be a good neighbor. I've spoken directly to a number of the neighbors, as I have stated. You know, some people just don't like change, but not all change is bad. I'm seeking to invest in the neighborhood with a new building, with high-quality materials, a professional general contractor doing the construction, going through this process, meeting with you, and we'll continue through the rest of the permitting process, and hopefully be able to enjoy the use of my property as I initially intended. So thank you for your time.
Okay, board members, do you have any questions or comments for the applicant?
Well, I've got a question, I think, for either Nicole or Devin. So if he were to use it as a short-term rental, it's not allowed in there, that district, without a variance of use or rezoning. Do you understand what that is?
My understanding is that I would have to get the conditional use permit like you guys were just talking about for the thing. No, honestly, I don't. This whole thing is new to me and I'm learning as I go through.
No, in order to use it as a short-term rental, you would have to go through another process, a variance of use, which I'm gonna say, I believe is very difficult, if anyone else wants
Yes,
to
it's
say.
not something that we really like to do. A variance, let me explain briefly since you're unfamiliar. Each zoning district like this one is residential 8. It has criteria. This means max or 8 houses per acre. Residential 4 means 4 houses per acre. So you see there, it's an attempt to group different kinds of things all together. Heavy manufacturing puts steel mills in one place. Light manufacturing puts small factories together. It's things like that. There are a multitude of different zoning categories, and they all have certain things that are permitted. You can easily go to the office and you can talk to Mr. Patterson there, and he can point out to you exactly what's permitted, and some things are just not allowed. Some things are allowed with conditional uses, where you, like the permits you heard before. Some things are permitted, like in manufacturing, you're permitted, don't need any special, don't have to come here to this board to build a steel mill if you want to. Or in, certain commercial districts, you can put a Walmart, cause that's where they're supposed to go.
Right.
And when it comes to short and long-term rentals, some districts you can't do that. Now, occasionally somebody will come here and want a variance of use. That means that, well, it says I can't do that here, but I really want to do it, and I have really stringent special reasons why I should be allowed to do that. And the most notable one was the jail. It's put in an area where there was a category of use was for, not clearly for a prison. So we granted a variance of use there because a jail is an extremely exceptional item and you don't have them on every corner. So before you go to do something, you'll have to talk to Mr. Patterson. He'll help you out.
Mr. Patterson has been very helpful through this process in explaining and helping me do what I need to do here today. So, I appreciate all of that information. I guess I would just reiterate that my primary purpose was the garage and the space. The second story was an extension of that primary purpose, and actually having some revenue to help offset the expense of doing the first two was an additional extension. So I don't think that if the Airbnb was my primary intent for the building and my sole purpose for the building, then yes, based on what you've told me, I would back way up and I would regroup. But based on, as I've explained, how I got to that point, I'm still very comfortable with my thoughts of proceeding, my personal intentions with the building, if you guys see fit to approve. And
So
the
in,
other people.
go ahead. So in that block, are there any two-story garages? I didn't see them when I drove through.
In that particular block, I don't think so, no. In the block to the east, there are two-story garages. In the block, and some that you might, I don't know, I'm not gonna speculate what's upstairs. To the block to the west, there are a number of small buildings on the back of properties, with homes on the front that have walk-in doors and cars parked there, and some even with addresses. So I can only presume that those are residences. Be they rental or permanent residences, I don't know.
But they were already there, they weren't built recently, they had existed for
I
a
don't
longer
think
period.
that none of them look very new, no.
Well, as it's pointed out here, short-term rental category 581, we have he can show you, there's a list, section 7 of this thing, that you really, kind of looks like that.
Okay.
It's got a whole multitude of uses and where they can be used and where they can't be used and where they have to have conditional uses. As he points out, category 581 is not allowed in R8. So the only way you could do that would try to get yourself rezoned or get a variance of use, and that's not really done. You gotta have a really, really good reason to rezone. For example, down at the very end of Main Street, where's that big white mansion next to the Elks? That was rezoned, but it had a really good reason. It was an extremely significant historical property, had to do with Civil War medicine.
Okay.
So they had a very, very good reason, but you would have to come to get it rezoned, you gotta go to Plan Commission, and then you gotta go to City Council, and that's spot zoning, and that's just utterly frowned on. And variances of use, well, you better have a really, really good use or a reason, like the jail did, for example.
Yeah, so again, I keep coming back to my primary purpose. honestly, well, how to phrase, you know, the two extensions to my use. So I do have my contractor working on two separate quotes for me. The building that we're talking about here is quite expensive. So I still do, I'm asking this board tonight for a variance to build within 3
Right,
feet
3
of the
feet.
property line. I haven't applied for my building permit yet, because I still the building in question may still prove to be outside of even what you're talking about, may prove to be cost prohibitive, right? So I still have two things going on. One, a single-story garage. If you saw the two quotes, the marginal cost to go up one more level and do what I'm talking, seems to make sense.
Sir, we're not here to play what if. We're not here to play what if.
Well, I'm asking-
You're asking us to consider your application on terms and conditions that are unknown.
I'm asking to build a building 20 feet by 32 feet within 3 feet of the property line.
And we need to know what the intended purpose of the building is.
Well, it's primarily a garage. You know, if you build
Well,
just a
that's not what I
garage-
hear him saying.
Yeah.
That's not what I hear him saying.
If you were just to build a garage, build yourself a nice garage, maybe with a bit of a loft in it to store stuff or whatever, I don't know that anybody would object. But I just want, as Mrs. Burkhart pointed out, if you're planning on using it for a short-term rental, well, that's not allowed in your zoning district.
Okay.
So if you would like to think this over, we can easily table this till the next meeting and give you time to think it over, what you'd like to do.
No. I spoke to Josh before this meeting and told him that exactly what I've explained to you. And if you would be willing to approve, based on the information that you've given me, if you would be willing to approve the single-story garage, the 20 by 32 single-story garage for use for me to store, work, play. If me amending my application to that will get this approved through this board tonight, that would be perfectly acceptable to me.
So you're going with the single story only, with 3 foot, east setback, and I assume you meet the, 10-foot setback on the other
Yeah,
property
you said
line?
you had 18
So that's what
feet.
you're asking for, single story garage.
So what I've asked my contractor to build, and we can put this in there, because I do have to dig back, because it slopes up, right? So I have to dig back. The back of that building in the photos is where the beginning grade will be. You know, and it'll slope
right,
up probably
that
about
would-
4 inches, so I'm gonna have to dig
that's,
into that.
That's not really germane to what we're doing.
Well, only because I'm talking about putting like 2 feet of concrete and then building the 8-foot walls on top of that. So it would be like 10-foot wall garage as opposed to an 8-foot wall garage is what I desire. But a single story, I just don't want anybody, I just say that because I don't want anybody to come back and say, oh, you went 2 feet taller. So yes, a single story garage with 10-foot walls, 20 by 32, within 3 feet would satisfy my needs.
Are there certain parameters that specify how big a single story is? Okay. Okay.
Well, that
See if
sounds
there's
good. You,
But I think he's within the definition.
Okay.
I think it came up when we were doing another application.
Okay,
Yeah, I think it
Okay.
did too.
Okay,
But it includes subterranean and all kinds of stuff.
Okay.
Okay,
go comments.
so you're asking for 3-foot setback on, I believe, the east side?
On the
Yes,
side
east
there.
side.
Single story.
3 foot instead of 10 feet, which is required by the ordinance. Single story, 20 by 30 foot, 2-foot garage.
Yes.
Okay. Now we know what you want. Would anybody in the audience, and this obviously does not include a residential type story on it. Anybody in the audience like to speak for or against this application as submitted? Board members, yes, sir. Give your name and address for the
Yeah,
record.
Kevin Williams, I am the owner, along with my wife Angie at 1117, the neighbors to the east. So there was a lot of changing going on from the application to this dynamic conversation here, and that was a lot of our concerns that you read in our letter, right? We were concerned about a multi-story, we were concerned about a double Airbnb, we were concerned about neighbors looking down from a second story down into our backyard, which you heard, improvements we've been putting into our backyard, so, I guess I've got a few questions as well as some statements. So I talk a lot about in that letter about the character of the neighborhood. What's the other buildings in the neighborhood look like? What are the inhabitants of that neighborhood? So, the single story with a garage and a workspace, completely understand what Bob's after. I had the same desires down the road for my own property. If we're taking multi-story off the table, I think that changes a lot of things, right? I was concerned about multifamily, multi-use, multiple commercial property. Basically, the original as submitted was trying to turn this into a commercial property, multiple rental, right? So, I guess at this time, my only other question is, so what's the purpose of shoving it all the way to one side? I heard about a drive, and I'm familiar with the drive, but it's still gonna take the drive out going 20 feet either way. So why should I give up all the offset for the other side? Why can't it be centered on the property? If it's just there's gonna be a parking pad, there's gonna be the garage space there. What's the reasoning why we need to offset all the way to one side or versus maybe centering it the building? Would be one consideration I would ask for. The other thing I'm not clear on is, as we talk about views, and I won't go into the downward spiral of whose view is what and whose is better and why we like it. We bought the property for a reason. It's because of views. I can see the river from where we live. So is there an ordinance or a requirement, or can it be as part of this approval? Let's not build a 2-story building that's really a single story and then add a second level later or anything like that. I don't know what the rules are. I'm not saying that's his intent. I just want to protect my investment. That's really what this is about. So I guess I would ask that question, is there a possibility for this approval to define that a little more clearly so that we know what we're talking about tonight is in fact what's actually executed, right?
Well, if we make a motion to build for example, included in the motion, build a 20 by 32 foot single-story garage with a 3-foot setback, then that's what he's allowed to do.
Right, well, I oppose the 3-foot. I question the necessity
Well,
of
the
pushing
3-foot
it to my side versus centering it, or why 3-foot? Why not 5? Why not 7? What's the reasoning behind the 3-foot, I guess is the question. Why so close to
Well,
my
we'll
property?
let him come back up and answer that.
Sure, yeah.
As I understand it, it's because it's a narrow lot. That is zone residential 8 down there.
And we don't hate each other, by the way. No, we don't. We've known Bob for a while. We're just in disagreement, right? We're not gonna kill each other after we leave, I promise.
There's no need blood outside.
No.
Just don't kill your,
I just don't want, I understand this is our garage, like I said,
just
I
don't
want
kill
to.
each other inside here.
Yeah.
Too much paperwork.
But, I think those are some of the questions, and I think, a lot of neighbors came tonight, I think taking it down to a single story alleviates a lot of those concerns, right? It does for me. So, yeah, if we want to get to where, maybe a maximum ceiling height or something like that, so that we're all just protected, it's what he's gonna do anyway, wants to do, so there should be no issues
And
with that.
there is a limit to what you can control your neighbor,
Exactly.
Man's right to his property.
Exactly. But there are some views from our neighborhood. We do see some trees and some other pieces. It doesn't block our river view, but it does block some of the foliage with the two-story. A lot of that's gone with a single. That's kind of a moot point
Yeah.
now, so.
Sir, I lived in Gary, Indiana for 35 years. I frequently went to Chicago. I'd watch a guy put up a 30-story high-rise with a view of Lake Michigan, and then I'd watch, about a year later, somebody put up a 50-story high-rise that took his view away, and all you saw was some guy with a wife-beater shirt scratching his belly. So there is not much protection for...
But let's let him answer the question. Are you just replacing the storage barn that was there with the garage, or are you keeping that storage barn there?
No, it's gonna go.
So that's where you're putting the garage?
On the, application, there was
Come on
a
up to the-
drawing that kind of showed a plan view from the top. So I planned, to put a 18 to 20 foot parking space. It wasn't in what I provided, it was with the letter. I've got a copy of it in my
Okay.
folder. Do you have my folder? Okay, if I come up.
Sure.
With your application, is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Yeah, it was with the application.
It's with the
I see it,
application.
I see it.
So, have you seen this? The application? So, I'm gonna kind of stand. So this is an existing garage, this is the house, and there's a carport on the back of the house, and I want to maintain driveway access to that house. And then, I want a parking pad, you know, it's gonna be about 15 or 18, 20 feet from the alley, so that I can park my truck when I go to play. I wanna be able to park in front of my building and not block the driveway, and driveway access in and out, not obstructing, what is existing there. So if I come off 3 feet, 23 feet, that leaves me 15 feet of driveway space, driveway width. So that's the intention.
And if you were to observe the 10-foot side yard, you would have an 8-foot driveway space.
Yeah, it would be in the middle, and it would destroy that ability
And
to
that's
drive.
one of the,
Okay.
one of the problems with that area down there. It's zoned R8 years ago, who knows why, but it's more like historic district residential, which would have had automatically a 3-foot side yard. So it's like, we run into this all the time in Madison.
So Kevin, do you understand what he's saying there?
I do, yep, I do.
That makes sense. Okay.
Okay, is that all, sir?
Yeah, I think, like I said, I just wanted to understand what the reasoning was for that. Looking at the lot, it seems like it could be shoved over a little bit more with where all that's located, but, honestly, taking the two-story off the table, if we're doing that, that alleviates a lot of my fears.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anybody else like to speak for or against? Oh, yes, ma'am.
I'm Kathy Hill, and I live at 1212 West Second Street. And Bob mentioned about me doing a garage and adding an apartment. That's kind of a deceiving explanation. This is a picture of my house. And this garage was existing when I bought the property.
That garage there?
This 28 by 60 foot garage was there.
Okay.
It was a very ugly, beat-up metal building,
Can I hold her phone?
sure, eyesore, and it was too nice to tear down, but it didn't look at all. Here's the home. There's my house next to it. Okay, so it was too nice to tear down, but as an individual that lives on her own, I had no use for a 28 by 60 foot building, so I decided to make it match my home so that it wasn't an eyesore and I could be proud of it. And I had put the garage in from the end because I kept having people, I put the driveway in from the end because people kept wanting to buy the other piece of property, including friends. So I just said, I'll use the whole property because I got about 2/3, 3/4 of an acre. So I merely took what was there and put in new windows meeting the requirements of the historic board and a new garage door and everything. And on the one end, it's too much garage space, so half of it I divided up and it's empty inside, and eventually, my plan is potentially down the road to make it into living space, but that living space is not gonna be rented. It's not gonna be an Airbnb. It's merely for my grandkids to use, or maybe for my mom, who's 88, to help her separate living space, or in my old age, for me to be in, and my son or daughter to live in the house to help care for me. But I don't have a particular use. It was just simply too much to use as a separate garage for me. So I thought it'd be a great play area for my grandkids, who I have 4, that range in age from 1 to 8. So it's not commercial property, it's not for rent. I've had numerous people ask if it's gonna be an apartment for rent, and it is not, and it will not be. So, and as far as, one of the issues that I had with the 2-story and the Airbnb is you saw my drive. I already have an issue with people using that like a city street. And the people that come through that alley, since the alley is in disrepair and very narrow, and it had a drainage problem, so when I did the garage, I spent another $5,000 having Saddam bury pipe and reroute the water that was causing problems in the alley, so that there wasn't a drainage issue there because of the condition of the alley. So I alleviated that, and I made the rest of that, instead of gravel, I asphalted it. And so people that come through there, including the former residents of the property he bought, used my drive as an entrance and exit. And that's one of the concerns that I have now. I don't mind neighbors coming through with a golf cart or this and that, but I've had a lot of people that use it as a city drive. And that, I have grandkids riding their bicycles there, and I just, I don't want that to happen. And as far as the 3-foot, that's between Kevin and Angie. I live over here where I have a lot of my own space and elbow space. I personally wouldn't want something within 3 foot of my property, but, that's up to them.
Yeah, that's also the geography
So-
of small lots.
So ma'am, are you saying that, according to your beliefs, he doesn't have ingress and egress to his property because it's your driveway?
No, he does through the alley,
Okay,
but what happens is that alley is in what I would call deplorable shape.
It's tough.
It's horrible. The alley's in terrible shape, so people that come through there use my drive.
yeah.
Now, Kevin and Angie have always asked permission. Can we park a car there temporarily? Is it all right if we bring a golf cart through? And so we're good neighbors, we know each other. But I had a gentleman, I had a man that was using it to bring a former bus through there that hit the corner of my building and was coming through on a regular basis because he couldn't get through the alleys. He lives a block away. My understanding is he's back in prison.
But he can't access his property through, because
Yeah,
Yes,
I just
he
wanted
can
to-
access his
Right.
property. The problem is, especially if it was an Airbnb,
right, but we have
people
to
are
deal
gonna
with that.
automatically.
Right, but that's something off the table.
Well, my understanding,
Right.
and I don't know if this is the case, is that the home that he purchased in the front was looking to be an Airbnb.
But we're not
Maybe
dealing
it
with
is
that
not.
right now.
We're not
That's-
dealing
that's
with
not
that,
something
ma'am,
tonight,
no.
though.
I just wanted to make sure I understood what
Right.
you were saying.
Right,
Right.
That's
no,
all.
it's,
Alley.
people are naturally using it because it looks like a street.
Okay, thank you. Well, I think we've heard a pretty good explanation of everything, so I'm gonna. Pardon?
If I could say a couple things.
Yes. If you name and
Definitely.
address for the record.
Angie
ma'am.
Williams, 1117 West Main Street. We are on the east side of the proposed garage. A one-car garage, great. And my understanding is that's the new application now. It's been amended to be just a one-story.
Two-car garage, one
Two-car
story.
garage. That's awesome, that's great. I understand variances are given, and in that neighborhood, we have houses close to each other already. Those are already existing homes that we can't do anything about. We're just asking that, I variance not be granted, and that he built on the amount of property that was given. I understand it's a small lot, there's not a lot of room. These are things that he knew when he bought the property, and, you know, I would have looked into those things before purchasing a property to make sure I could do the things I wanted to do. Some of the things I wrote down as notes, I'm trying to look over to make sure, because I think some of those are alleviated already. Also, another very important thing, I think, is that, I'm not sure how this works, but we have not been able to obtain a survey. So that 3 foot is a pretty big deal. We've had 3 different companies come out and try to survey the property, 2 in the last 3-4 years, and then 1 that we partnered with Bob and Anita to have done. And so far, nobody has been able to give us an actual survey because there's 3 foot missing in that block. So depending on where that line is, moves it closer or further away than what it would appear to be. So we would definitely hope that that would be a consideration before it was approved.
Well, of course, if we did make a motion, that would be in the motion. That would be 3 feet from the lot line, so. And I believe, sir, you're going on the assumption the telephone pole is pretty close to the lot line, which is pretty accurate usually.
The telephone pole is pretty close to the line. The surveyor, I spoke to him last week, and he's doing his thing, right? I'm not gonna try to explain what the surveyor's doing, but, he's gonna come out, he said, in the next week or so and mark the property line. So while the property lines are not there today, he has it on his books once he gets all of his survey magic done, to come mark the lines, and we'll build up the lines that are established by the surveyor.
And that would be in the motion.
Right, the previous people that we had come out, when they measure different sides, it comes out differently. And in one of their measurements, that telephone pole is pretty, you know, I think we don't really dispute that that's kind of in the general area. But their second measurement puts it 3 foot further away, I think, or further in, I can't remember now, but there is a 3 foot difference than what we think could
Well,
be
I'm
it.
sure his surveyor will find that out.
I think that was the only thing else I had to add to it.
Okay, thank you. Board members, any other questions, comments? Well, then shall we move on to our variance from development standards finding of fact, the 3 criteria. And some of you have never been in a meeting like this. There are criteria we have to follow, and they're specified in state law. So we don't make this stuff up. It's state of Indiana. Number 1, and this is, to be specific, once again, this is a request, 3 foot setback off the east property line to build a 20 by 32 foot single-story garage. Number 1, will this application injurious public health, safety, morals, general welfare? Mr. Ferris.
No, I don't believe it will.
Mrs. Burkhart.
No, I don't see any problem with that listed.
This is so common to downtown Madison that people with buildings in their backyards, people right on the lot lines, people close to the lot lines, narrow lots, zoning districts that were imposed years after the thing was laid out. I think that this one will not affect anybody's morals or anything. Number 2, use and value of the area adjacent be affected in a substantially adverse manner. Mr. Ferris.
You know, this application, I put in the same category with a lot of other applications that we deal with, and it's a tough one to answer sometimes. You know, all things considered, I think the ask of the applicant to build a single-story garage is reasonable. I think, compromises can be made. The neighbors have attested to that, so I don't believe that it will, substantially affect the neighborhood and adjoining properties in an adverse manner.
Mrs. Burkhart?
I agree. I don't see a substantially adverse effect there. You're replacing an older building with a new build, essentially the same property area. And there's several in that area that have properties near the property line, so I don't see any problem with that.
And we have certainly heard no testimony from a realtor or an assessor or a legally approved source saying that there would be any adverse effects on neighbors, so I think that one's met. Number 3, strict application in terms of the zoning ordinance result in practical difficulties in the use of the property. Mr. Ferris?
So the strict application would prevent the applicant from building a structure of the size and scope that, he's detailed for us. I think that, that it would prevent the project. I'll leave it at that.
Mrs. Burkhart?
I agree, it would prevent the project, and it would prevent him from being able to utilize his carport.
And we run into this all the time when people want to build modern things that are considered perfectly normal in our present day, that back in 1900 were never dreamed of. The practical difficulty of the 10-foot setback is the remaining part of the access to the back of the house is now about 8 feet wide, which almost precludes it from, by modern standards, from being used for anything. So, given the fact that this is a narrow lot, that it's one of these things we run into in downtown Madison all the time, I think that's a very practical difficulty in the use of the property. And I think that a 3-foot setback from the lot line is, if this were zoned HDR, that would be perfectly legal. But for some reason, it's put into R8, which is considered to be more of a modern zoning thing for building subdivisions and whatnot. I think given all the factors involved here, I think that this is the practical difficulty is established. So I think that one's met. We've gone through our findings of fact. We'll take a motion. This is the motion. Well, I move that we approve this variance for a 3-foot setback from the east property line for a single-story 20 by 32-foot garage with no residential construction involved in it. That's my motion.
Second.
We have a roll call?
Nancy Burkhart,
Yes.
Rick Ferris,
Yes.
Scott Baldwin.
Yes. Well, you have your variance. Now, we have the next two. Let's put this together. The next two go together.
Thank you, guys.
You're welcome. We have the next two. The first is a conditional use permit for a mobile home, and the second is a variance to put the home on the lot. The location is 3684 East Interstate Block Road, and that's zoned residential agriculture. And the problem arising is for the request for the variance is it's not a 1 acre lot. Well, sir, would somebody come up and address the board what you plan to do? If you give your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Fortino Miranda. My address is 950 Northwood Drive, Lot 49, Madison, Indiana. I buy this lot like 6-7 months ago, and I tried to put my mobile home there, like new one, but it's already one there, so I tried to throw away that one and put new one. And this is why I come in here and try to see like I can do it. Because I need something bigger for my family, and this is why I'm thinking buy the lot.
Okay.
Do we have any record of the previous mobile home?
What do you mean by record?
Did the previous mobile home have a conditional use
No,
permit?
no, I believe it was a non-conforming use from before.
And that mobile home has been there for quite a long time, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Yes.
So what year's his new one, do we know?
You said you're wanting to place a new,
Like, no, but the guy say like 2012, 2013. I trying to find one like that year, like more better one, because that one is not
Yeah.
good. So I try to throw away that one and put one more new one.
So what year
So-
does he have to have?
Has to be less than 15 years old at time of application.
Okay.
So hence that would be 2008. Or, yeah, 2008.
So you haven't purchased a home yet?
No, yeah. I still looking because everything is expensive right now, but I try to have like the permits first and I go see
Right.
and yeah.
Okay. So it has to be newer than 2008, we decided?
Yeah, I don't know, it's like 2008 or 9, like,
Okay.
but I'll try to find some like 2011, 12, like
Right.
some
Okay.
more better.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, your mobile, the old no good mobile home on the property,
No, it's not good. It's like bad. Like,
it's, you have your property line here and 21 feet to the mobile home. Why do you need that 21 feet instead of 40 feet? Like in residential agriculture, you're supposed to be 40 feet from the lot line to your building, and you want 21. Why do you need 21?
like one side I think is 21, the other side, I don't know, sure, I don't match, but
Well, your application is 21 feet from your mobile home, and you have a shed
yeah,
in the backyard,
Yeah.
7 feet from that property line. So that's, but the edge of your mobile home is, golly, your property is pretty wide.
would it be possible for you to set the mobile home so that it is 40 feet from each property line?
this says, she told me, the other day, but I don't have that money right now for put like a straight, like torn, and I would try maybe to buy the more small, like a double one, like 66, make more room. But I try to find one like this, maybe make more room than that size, because that one like 80 is long, but 86 is short, so maybe more room on both sides. But I still try to find one like that. Because for
Yeah, because I live right around the corner on Borchering Road. So I go by that property quite a bit. And to me, it looks like there's room on that parcel to set a mobile home and maintain the required 40-foot setback.
So he wouldn't need the variance then?
That's what I see.
Would you, sir, feel more comfortable if you had a Spanish translator?
One of my friends is coming, so this is why wait a little bit, and she speak both languages.
Okay, well then why don't you have a seat, and when your friend comes, we will bring you back up.
Yeah.
Okay? We
Maybe
want to make
more
sure
better.
you clearly understand, and I know how hard, having learned French, not very well, I know how hard it is to understand. So why don't you have a seat, and we will consider your application when your friend comes to
She almost
translate.
coming like 5 minutes, she say on
Okay,
the road.
well,
so-
have a seat. Well, while we're waiting, we'll move on to number 4 on the agenda. Rebecca Brown, conditional use permit to allow for short-term rental, 307 East Fourth, Historic District. Oh, is this your friend that's gonna, oh, well, ma'am,
She
Sorry.
was so close and yet so far.
I'm sorry, ma'am.
Sorry.
Close.
Okay, you repeat. Te va a decir la-
Okay, I'm glad you're here, good. This will help him. The question, does the translator, he doesn't need to give his name, I don't think so. The question we asked, his trailer is in a zoning district called residential agriculture that requires his house or his trailer to be 40 feet from the property line. His trailer is 21 feet. So the question we have is, why does he need a trailer 21 feet from the property line? Why can't he just put it in the right place and not need a variance? If you could ask him. Yes, why does he need to have his trailer 21 feet from the property line? Why can't he not put it 40 feet from the property line?
Oh, porque esa trailer ya estaba allí cuando yo compré la propiedad, y así estaba allá. Y-
He says that when he bought the trailer, that's how it was originally, so he didn't actually even know that it was 21 feet instead of 40.
But if he puts his new one within the 40 feet, he doesn't need to go through a lot of this.
Entonces dice que si pones la nueva casa en 40 pies, que en realidad esto, como no tienes que pasar a través de esto, si lo pones como 40 pies. Pero en la línea.
Entonces, así como está bien o
Ahorita como está, nomás quieren saber por qué está como de 21 pies, porque no está como atrasada suficiente.
así de la carretera o de los lados del vecino.
He's asking if it's from like the road or from the neighbor's line.
No, that would be from the east side of his property. From the neighbor's line on the east side.
Entonces del lado de los vecinos, cualquier lado.
No sé por qué esté así, porque esa trailer se ve que tiene muchos años allí. Y me dijo la señora que cuando ella la pusieron, que así les dieron permiso de ponerla.
Yeah, so he's still not like sure why, because when he talked to the lady that owned the house before, they said that they had permission to actually leave the house there. So he wasn't aware of this.
Do you have any knowledge of a variance previously granted?
As I said before, it most likely exists as a non-conforming use.
It looked like just from aerials on Google Earth that exact trailer had been there since 1998, so it probably predated zoning codes.
Well, the 81 ordinance would have required, they just did it, I guess, huh?
So what we're asking is, we understand that he wants to tear down the old trailer. But if he could set his new trailer and move it so that he does have 40 feet from the neighboring property lines, then he doesn't have to get the variance that he's asking for.
En realidad, no es lo que estás buscando, como el permiso que estás buscando, porque nomás que después de que destruyes la trailer, que lo pongas entre 40 pies de las líneas de los vecinos.
Y ese va a ser el problema, que no hay espacio. Es que yo le decía que estoy buscando una como más chica, como de 76, entonces a lo mejor sí da más espacio. Pero, pues no sé si la encuentro, es lo que estoy viendo. Porque el señor la otra vez me dijo que si yo buscaba una más chica, a lo mejor estaba bien, si se quedaba allí en el mismo lugar.
So he said that like he's aware of this, but his problem would be just the area constraint, that it probably wouldn't have enough space. And one of the solutions he thought for this is to just reduce the size of his house, and then maybe it could possibly fit in there if it was like the exact same spot. But as for that, he's not sure if he can.
El vecino del que dice él que tiene 21 feet, él me dijo que por él no hay problema, que yo puedo hacer en mi propiedad lo que yo quiera, dice. El que dice el señor que está más chico, me dijo el vecino.
And then he also said that the neighbor, the one who's maybe 21 feet away from their line, he actually already talked with them to see if it was okay if he could, encroach a little bit. And he said that it was completely fine, but I'm not sure this would or not be enough for you guys.
His lot is, according to the survey, 128 feet wide. If you have two 40-foot side lots, that leaves 48 feet, 45 feet. How long is the trailer, your new trailer?
Como 76.
76 feet.
Estoy buscando
Okay.
76 o 66. 66 a 76.
So the new one he's looking for is 65 to 75.
So we'll say 70 feet. Okay, well, that gives us two 40-foot lots, or side yards would leave about 48 feet total free. let's just say a 68-foot trailer and goes in on those, so, okay. So the two 48-foot lot, or excuse me, two 40-foot side lots leaves 48 feet to put out a structure in, a trailer. So I think that's what you're driving at. Any questions, board members? I guess I have no more.
What size is the trailer that's on there now?
¿Qué es el tamaño del tren?
Esa se me que es como 76.
76.
76.
Okay. Well, that answers my question. So the 48 feet of available building space to put a modern trailer there. You're probably better off, okay, I see. Okay, thank you. Would anybody in the audience like to speak for or against this proposed variance? Okay, thank you. Siente. Well, one last chance, board members. Any comments, questions? Well, this is a variance from developmental standards. We'll consider this one first. And the variance is for a 21-foot setback from the east for the trailer. And it also includes a 7-foot setback on the west side to accommodate that existing shed.
Do we have to do the conditional use for it?
I think we're gonna do the variance first.
Okay.
If we do the variance first, then that establishes that he can actually
Right.
put something there.
Cool.
And the other reason for the variance is the fact that instead of 1 acre, this is a according to the survey, 0.775 acres. So this is the reason for the variance. 21 feet to the east side for the trailer, 7 feet for that existing shed, and a lot that's too small for RA. Findings of fact, number one, injurious to public health, safety, etc. Mr. Acosta.
He's not here.
Excuse me. I'm
Got him
getting
on the
groggy.
Really?
FaceTiming,
He's an ex-president.
FaceTiming.
You get an old geezer and
He's in bed.
running this, that's what happens to you. There it is, let's strike him out. Mr. Ferris,
No, I don't see any reason to believe that it's gonna be injurious to, any of those things, including the general welfare of the community.
Mrs. Burkhart,
No, I see no problems with any of those listed.
and I agree, I see no great danger to the general welfare by putting a trailer 21 feet from the lot line where a trailer has been for years. Number two, will this affect the value of adjoining properties? Mr. Ferris?
I don't think so. The fact that there's a, pre-existing mobile home on that lot, without any known incident, I don't think it is gonna have an adverse effect on the neighbors.
Mrs. Burkhart?
No, I see no substantially adverse when he's replacing the older trailer with the newer one.
And I agree with Mrs. Burkhart. In addition, we've received no testimony from anybody indicating anything adverse, and this is, as she pointed out, upgrading an old trailer with a new one. I think that one's met. Number three, what are the practical difficulties? Mr. Ferris?
The practical difficulties are the size of the lot. Doesn't, match up with the size of home that can be situated on the property without, infringing on the need of, a variance for a smaller setback.
Mrs. Burkhart?
I agree with Mr. Ferris's comments on that one.
And the first problem is you couldn't do anything at all there because it's not even the 1 acre. The next problem is you'd have to move that shed that's just been there for years because it's too close to the west lot line. And the third practical difficulty is, given two 40-foot side yards, there's only 48 feet for a building or a residence. So I think, given the history of the place with the trailer there for a long time and these other problems, I think that one's met. Well, we've gone through our findings of fact. We have a motion for this variance.
I make a motion, we approve this variance.
Second, we have a roll call.
Nancy Burkhart,
Yes.
Rick Ferris,
Yes.
Scott Baldwin.
Yes. Now, the next one is a conditional use permit to actually place the mobile home there. And it's been shown to him that he has to follow the requirements for a new mobile home in section 611 subsection C2A, C and D, which means it has to be less than 15 years old or newer than a 2008 model. So, board members, do you have any questions or comments about the conditional use aspect? Would anybody in the audience like to speak for or against the conditional use permit for this trailer? Seeing none, we will move on to our findings of fact. That's category 112. Number one, do you agree this is appropriate category, Mr. Ferris?
I do. I think it fits, in with the definition.
Mrs. Burkhart?
Yes, category 112 is allowed in RA with a conditional use permit.
And category 112 is the right one. Number two, harmonious with the general objectives of Mr. Ferris?
Yeah, I mean, I see this as an improvement to the property, getting rid of the old one that's there and replacing it with a newer one.
Mrs. Burkhart?
Yes, I see it harmonious with the plan.
And I think it fits in with the general drift of the plan, especially since there's been a trailer there for years. Number 3, harmonious propane and carrots are in appearance with the existing character of the area. Mr. Ferris?
Yeah, I think it's an improvement, to the neighborhood and, you know, hope that the applicant, enjoys his property and keeps it well maintained.
Mrs. Burkhart?
I don't believe it'll change the character of the area.
The intended character of the area, or the existing character, certainly is very similar to what's gonna be put there. I think that one's met. Number 4, disturbing to neighboring uses. Mr. Ferris?
No, I don't see any reason to believe it'll be disturbing or hazardous to the neighbors.
Mrs. Burkhart?
I see no problem with that one.
And number 5, this is about utilities and so forth. Mr. Ferris?
Yeah, I think that property is served well by all public utilities.
Mrs. Burkhart?
It was served in the past, I assume it'll be served in the future.
And I don't even see any issue whatsoever there. Number 6, requirements at public expense, not detrimental to economic welfare. Mr. Ferris?
I see no reason to believe that it'll, do any of those things.
Mrs. Burkhart?
I again see no problem with that one.
And I see no problem there either. Number 7, this is about excessive traffic, noise, smoke, etc. Mr. Ferris?
Nope, I don't see any issues, with any of those things.
Mrs. Burkhart?
I see no issues with one trailer.
And I am in agreement. One trailer replacing another trailer, which was previously lived in. I think that one's met. Number 8, this is approaches to the property, doesn't interfere with traffic. Mr. Ferris?
No, I see no reason to believe that it'll, interfere with traffic.
Mrs. Burkhart?
I see no interference with traffic.
And I agree. No problems there. And number 9, this is about natural or scenic things being lost. Mr. Ferris?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know of any historic, features out there in that part of the, country unless you consider the airport, a historic scenic property, but I see no issues.
Mrs. Burkhart?
I see no issues with that.
And I don't even think that one pertains. Well, we've gone through our findings of fact. We'll take a motion about this conditional use permit.
I move we approve conditional use permit for mobile home for 1 year.
Second. We'll have a roll call.
Nancy Burkhart,
Yes.
Rick Ferris,
Yes.
Scott Baldwin.
Yes. Well, sir, you have variance and conditional use. We wish you well.
Good luck.
Now, Mrs. Brown, thank you for your patience. This is Rebecca Brown, 307 East 4th, Historic District Residential, conditional use permit for short-term rentals. And could you tell the board your plans, please?
Exactly that. Short-term rental at 307 East 4th. Actually, it has been a short-term rental. I was completely unaware of the requirement. And as soon as I learned that, I jumped on getting our application in.
Any questions, board members?
So how long have you had the property?
We purchased it over a year ago, so last year, last spring.
And you've been renting it since you purchased it?
Soon, a couple months after that, we started.
How many cars do you anticipate showing up?
Usually it's one group. I mean, it's a 3-bedroom house, so maximum 6 people. I assume 1 or 2 cars at the most is what we've had. We've had no complaints on the number of cars from neighbors.
Because that's my only concern is parking, since you have no on-site parking.
Right, just
But I do notice across the street, you have a couple open spaces where there are buildings that have no front doors or anything like that.
Yeah, I've obviously I go there often and I've never had an issue parking on the street.
Any other questions, board members?
I know we've always asked about house rules before.
Yes.
Did you have a list of house rules that
I
you?
provided those with the application.
Did I say anything?
Joe, I emailed those to you
I don't
the
think
day I
I-
sent
Oh,
you.
here they are. They're on the
Yes,
very
sir.
back page. Here we go.
I probably didn't print 'em.
No pets, no events, no smoking, quiet hours 10 PM to 8 AM. And then the check-in, check-out, maximum number of guests, 6 or 2 per bedroom. And that's her rules. Would you want to, board members, would you want to include anything about no outdoor music? Because we frequently have that.
Yeah, need to be consistent.
Yes, we would have. We always ask for that because protect the peace and quiet of the neighborhood,
Sure,
of neighbors,
easy to add.
or outdoor music of any kind. Is that acceptable to you, board members, or would you like to change that?
It's good.
So the rules she has, no pets allowed, no events allowed, that precludes a lot of parties. No smoking, quiet hours, maximum number of guests, 6 or 2 per bedroom, no outdoor music of any kind. Well, would anybody in the audience like to speak for or against this proposed conditional use? One last chance, board members, just to be fair. Okay, well, seeing no groundswell of public input of any sort, we will move on. So this is a conditional use permit, category 581. So number one, do you agree this is conditional use? Mr. Ferris?
I do believe it fits into category 581.
Mrs. Burkhart?
I agree, and it's allowed in historic district with conditional use.
And that's the appropriate one. Number two, general objectives. Mr. Ferris?
We're on number 2, right?
Number two.
Yeah, I think with the house rules and just a little bit of oversight and management to make sure that guests abide by that, I think it fits in with the comprehensive plan.
Mrs. Burkhart?
I believe it's harmonious with the plan.
And the comprehensive plan is to maintain these old historic homes, and she's maintaining it. And as far as zoning ordinance, 581 covers that. Number three, this is about the character of the area. Mr. Ferris?
Yeah, it's an existing property. I think it fits in well with the character and vicinity of where it's located.
Mrs. Burkhart?
It won't change the character of the area.
No, those kind of uses are all around Madison, so I don't think that's going to change anything. I think that one's met. Number four, this is about disturbing use of neighbors. Mr. Ferris?
Again, I think with the list of house rules, there should be no reason to think it would be disturbing to the neighbors.
Mrs. Burkhart?
I agree with the house rules enforced. There should be no problem.
And I agree. I see minimal risk there. Number five, this is about utilities. Mr. Ferris?
Yeah, it's already being served by all of those services and utilities, so I don't see any issues there.
Mrs.
I
Burkhart?
see adequate facilities.
It's downtown. It's covered by all those. No problem. Number six, detrimental to the economic welfare of the community, Mr. Ferris.
No, I think it's just the opposite. As we've talked, people willing to invest in these older homes in downtown and maintain them is a positive impact on the economy.
Mrs. Burkhart.
I see no detriment to the welfare.
I think it'll help the economic welfare of the community. Number 7, this is about excessive production of traffic and all these other things. Mr. Ferris.
No, I see no reason to believe that there'll be any issues with that. The applicant stated that there's typically 1 to 2 cars when they rent the house, and I don't see that as being troublesome.
Mrs. Burkhart.
I see no reason, it's probably less than when somebody would live there permanently.
And I see no problems here. 2, 3 more cars, and the other things I don't see as problems. Noise with enforcement of the rules, no problem. Number 8, this is interfering with traffic. Mr. Ferris.
No, I think the property's already being served by on-street parking, and as long as they limit the number of vehicles, I don't see any issues with traffic.
Mrs. Burkhart.
I see no interference with traffic.
And I see none either. Number 8, this is destruction of historic features and so forth. Mr. Ferris.
I see no issues with this property destructing the scenic and historic features of that part of Madison.
Mrs. Burkhart.
I see no problems with any of those.
And I think it's helped preserving that fine old historic house. Well, we've gone through our findings of fact. I move we approve this conditional use for a period of 1 year, contingent or with the condition that the submitted rules are applied and followed, plus the additional rule of no outdoor music of any kind. That's
Second.
my motion.
Second.
I think we have a roll call.
Nancy Burkhart,
Yes.
Rick Ferris,
Yes.
Scott Baldwin.
Yes. We wish you well, ma'am. Well, the next item on the agenda, Mark and Bobby Joe Timmons.
Woo!
It's variance from development standards. Don't feel bad once we went till 2 in the morning. This is a variance from development standards to build along their east property line with a deck. 810 East 2nd, Historic District Residential. Yes, sir, if you could give your name and address for the record and tell the board what and why and all that you want to do.
My name is Mark Timmons, 810 East 2nd Street. And we bought this property, it already had an existing deck, we call it a porch, because it has a cover over it. But it's already built out to the adjoining property line. And we want to extend it and make it longer towards 2nd Street. But we want to make sure we have that variance before we do that. Because I don't think it was done before.
Oh, it probably wasn't. There have been cavalier days in Madison when it comes to these things.
Wild West.
Board members, any questions, comments?
No.
Yeah, I went and looked at your property there. You're right next door to the Filling Station Liquors,
Yes, sir.
and there's a little concrete fence, kind of about 1.5 feet
A
tall,
little toe wall, yeah.
which probably belongs to them, doesn't it?
I'm guessing it's right on the line, but
Yeah.
probably so.
And then you have that little grassy strip that
Right.
comes from way back where
Right.
the porch is up to the front, and you just want to fill that in with a porch.
Not totally. We're not
Right.
gonna go all the way out to the corner.
Well, I mean up to the edge of the
Up to the edge of that wall,
Right,
yeah.
that's what I meant.
Yeah, yeah. And then we'll come back from that corner back almost 8 foot, so it won't look like a big box.
So
And then we will
essentially,
put railing on it when it's done.
you're just making a very nice little way to walk back.
Yeah, right now, it's a 3-foot walkway that just walks from the porch to the front of the house to get to the sidewalk. Even the front porch is only like maybe 4 foot wide. You could barely set a chair in it. But what we want to do is make use of that grassy space into a social area where we can entertain guests and that sort of thing.
One last chance, board members, any questions? I presume you've all looked at it.
Yep.
Anybody in the audience like to speak for or against this? Which I don't think. Well,
Could I ask a question?
yes,
We also spoke, I spoke with Brooke about, we were also requesting, maybe it involves a permit, I'm not sure, but we're also going to build a fence along that same property line on the back side of the porch toward the alley. Is that something we need to do here, or?
Is not, you can build fences right on the property line without a variance.
What about a permit?
It would go through historic board, but if you're talking with Brooke, she's already reviewing that.
Okay, all right, very good.
okay. Well, seeing no further questions, we will go, this is a variance from developmental standards. So number one, will this injure the public health and morals? Mr. Ferris?
Nope, I don't see any reason to believe that an investment and upgrade of a downtown property would do any of that.
Mrs. Burkhart?
No, I don't see any problem with any of that.
I agree. I almost don't think that's an issue at all. Number two, will this adversely affect nearby property's value? Mr. Ferris?
I don't believe so. As we've listened to arguments for and against, I don't see any reason to think this is gonna adversely affect the adjacent property.
Mrs. Burkhart?
No, I see no effect on the adjacent property.
And I'm in agreement. We've heard no testimony, and frankly, I can't even imagine how there could be a harm to the adjacent property. Number three, what are the practical difficulties? Mr. Ferris?
Practical difficulties are the size of the lot and the lack of any zoning ordinances when the property was originally built. So if we applied the strict terms of the ordinance, they wouldn't be able to complete their project.
Mrs. Burkhart?
I agree. He's taking a non-conforming use and he's doing it the right way and getting the required permits.
And practical difficulties? It's hard for me to visualize that how should I phrase this? The practical difficulty is access to that back porch in the back half of the house. Seems to me this makes it a much better way to get to the back portion of the house. So I think that one's met, given the constraints of lot sizes and whatnot. I think they're met. Well, we've gone through our findings of fact. Take a motion. So variance for a 0 lot line on the east property line to build a small deck.
I move we approve this variance.
Second.
I think we have a roll call.
Nancy Burkhart,
Yes.
Rick Ferris,
Yes.
Scott Baldwin.
Yes. Well, we wish you well, sir. Yeah, pick a night when there's not a great long lot of things to do. Next on the agenda, Jessica Lawless, New Life Fellowship, conditional use permit for a daycare and a child care ministry, 1542 Clifty Drive, local business is the zoning. She's not here.
Oh, she's not here.
Well, then I move we table this till our next regular meeting.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The motion is tabled. That moves on to the next item, Kelsey Shaw, 118 Ferry Street, Historic District Residential. You're asking two categories here. Could you elaborate and tell the board exactly what you plan to do?
So I'm Kelsey Shaw, I'm the realtor that helped them purchase this property. It was remodeled into, I think it was functioning as short-term rental units, before they took over. They just closed on it about a month ago, and their plan is to do both short-term or extended stay, long-term, depending on how you want to, I guess, define that. Their plan is to advertise to some travel nurses at the hospitals or somebody from one of the local businesses who might have a worker who needs to stay somewhere for a month or two at a time, if they're traveling in and that sort of thing. So those are the people that they're wanting to advertise to. They're also wanting to do Airbnb, VRBO, short-term rentals as well, which they are also planning to honor everyone who was already booked under the previous owners too.
What is BRBO?
VRBO,
Vacation rentals, buy
yeah,
over.
it's like Airbnb, just a different platform.
I have one question for staff. She's asking for two categories. Has that been done before? Is there any problem with this?
I'm not aware that it's been done before, but it is possible, because what they're wanting to use it for does fall under two different categories, because the longer term rentals would be more like apartments.
In the opinion of staff, would this open up a can of worms sometime when people start pouring in wanting 5 different uses for their property?
I don't think so, because I think that those two particular uses are related. It's just a difference of time frame that the people are renting.
I didn't really know they needed them for apartments.
In certain categories,
Oh,
yeah.
really? Oh, really?
Any questions for applicant board members? I do notice you have parking lot there in the front, and that's historically been adequate for its uses.
Yeah, it will have, each spot will have 1 to 2 parking spots available per unit, depending on who is booked for those weekends.
Now, it's one thing when you have somebody staying there for a month or 6 months, but if you're using it for an Airbnb, we have always required house rules.
Yes. I did not turn those in, when we applied because we did not have them yet. Would you like me to read them to you?
Yes, like a copy submitted to the,
Okay. It is on my phone. Do you want me to submit a picture of them, or? Okay.
and what are they? Read them.
So check in at 4 p.m., check out at 10 a.m. Primary renter must be at least 25 years of age. No smoking, no pets, no parties or events, no blocking the street or driveway. Please use designated parking spots only. No loud noises, including yelling, loud music, loud vehicles, etc. Quiet hours from 11 p.m. to 8 a.m. and respect the home and neighbors.
Is that satisfactory to you, board members? Okay, any other questions? I do not think that there will be anybody from the audience commenting.
Do you want us to go get somebody?
No, please don't. Well, if there's no other questions, I guess we'll go to our findings of fact. Okay, have a seat, ma'am. Number 1, this is a conditional use, category 581 and 130, or 581 being the one that pertains to Airbnbs and that kind of stuff. Very, very short term. Do you agree this is a conditional use? Mr. Ferris?
Yes, I do believe it fits into both of those categories.
Mrs. Burkhart?
Yes, those categories are allowed in HDR with conditional use.
And they are allowed. Number two, this is the comprehensive plan. Mr. Ferris?
Yeah, I think it fits in very well with general objectives and comprehensive plan of Madison.
Mrs. Burkhart?
I agree that's harmonious with a comprehensive plan.
And since it's, those two items are in the section 7, they're harmonious with it. Number three, this is the general area. Mr. Ferris?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an existing structure that's already in use, and haven't heard of any complaints, so.
Mrs. Burkhart?
I agree, it's not gonna change the character of the area.
And I agree. There are other rental, well, there's a very large apartment quite close by. I think that one's met. Number four, disturbing neighbors. Mr. Ferris?
No, I think with the house rules established, there should be no reason that it should be disturbing.
Mrs. Burkhart?
I agree with the house rules implied.
And I agree. Enforcement of house rules should take care of that. Number five, this is about utilities. Mr. Ferris?
That's an existing structure already being served by public utilities, so I don't see that being an issue.
Mrs.
I
Burkhart?
agree, I see no issues with any of those.
And there certainly are none with a restaurant, former restaurant nearby and a huge apartment complex. That one's met. Number six, detrimental to economic welfare. Mr. Ferris?
No, I don't see any reason to believe that it's gonna be any of those things.
Mrs. Burkhart?
No, I don't see any problem with that either.
I think it's just the opposite. It'll help the welfare of the community. And this one's about traffic noise, smoke, et cetera. Mr. Ferris?
Yep, again, with the house rules, there shouldn't be any issues there.
Mrs. Burkhart?
I see no issues with any of those either.
And I don't think there will be any problem there foreseeable. This is about interfering with traffic. Number 8, Mr. Ferris?
Yeah, I don't see any issues with parking or traffic.
Mrs. Burkhart?
No, I see no problem with traffic.
And I think that one will not be an issue. Number 9, this is about loss of features. Mr. Ferris?
It's an existing structure that already fits in. I don't see any reason to believe it's gonna cause any more damage.
Mrs. Burkhart?
Yeah, I see no problem with that either.
And they've rehabilitated a structure, so I think that one's moot. Well, we will take a motion. I move we approve this conditional use permit under category 581 and 130 for a period of 1 year. Second, that she may apply for a longer term if there are no complaints and no problems at the expiration. And third, that the submitted rules be adhered to and enforced.
Second.
And a roll call.
Nancy Burkhart?
Yes.
Rick Ferris?
Yes.
Scott Baldwin?
Yes.
Thank you.
You are welcome.
And what email address should I use to send these? Okay.
And there are a couple things left here under old business. James Gurley, conditional use permit for a tobacco packaging facility, 2900 Wilson Avenue. He has 2 months not paid his renewal fee. Therefore, I move we instruct our attorney to send him a letter to the effect that if he wishes to continue in business, he will have to reapply for a conditional use permit and include something that if he does pay it by our next regular meeting, it will be renewed. And I also included in the motion that the appropriate staff member attempt to contact him to see if he's still in business and if he would like to apply for a longer-term one use, or a longer-term conditional use permit, since he has been in business for quite a while. That's my
That's your
motion.
motion?
Yes, sir.
I second it.
And we have a roll call.
Nancy Burkhart,
Yes.
Rick Ferris,
Yes.
Scott Baldwin.
Yes, and the last item, Laser Command is paid, so their permit is renewed. Well, do we have anything else that I've forgotten?
Nothing else?
Motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn.
Second. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, no. We are adjourned.